15, right?
We're doing it right now.
Right now, okay.
That one was, I thought, the toughest merit badge, our counselor. It
So how we doing, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Good?
Things good?
Yeah.
Completely by the book.
Here, family's all good, healthy?
Yeah, we just sent our daughter back to Italy, and that was, our little granddaughter crawled in bed with me this morning and snuggled, and I got to read books to her, but now she's gone. God. It'll be a little quiet in our house.
How long were they here for?
About 2.5 months.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a good long time. Where we got to today.
Oh.
Yeah. Got to teach her a little English, and yeah, now she'll be totally confused. But they're pretty resilient. Karen tried to get her potty trained while she was here, and that was a battle. One that I don't think she won. Oh, shoot. That's why parents have children and grandparents have grandchildren, and they leave it up to the parents to do the hard stuff. Okay.
Parenting is for the young.
Yeah, I think Karen's looking forward to some good night's sleep pretty soon. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. At least we have somewhat of an audience tonight, and that's we may have others on Zoom where we'll get started here in just about a few. I can't tell what clock is right. Mine says 5:14, so we'll wait just a minute. Hi, Mike. Welcome.
Thank you.
You doing okay, sir?
Well, my health hasn't been the best to me the last 6
I know you're walking with a little bit of a.
honestly bad attitude.
You know, a lot of good things happening. How you doing, Chief? Welcome.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for all the good work that your people are doing. You're doing great things, so
It's a good place.
glad you're with us.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Lee just applauds who you are. Every time I talk to him, he says, "You got a good one there," so that's good.
Appreciate that. Not a good one, the best.
Oh, there you go.
Stole the best. I didn't pay him to say that either.
Okay, let's go ahead and start. We're going to start this evening City Council meeting for Monday, February 1st, 2021. I'm Mayor Acerson, and I'll be conducting this meeting this evening. We're glad that we do have some people here this evening. We've got some great items on the agenda tonight. Looking forward to some of the presentations that we'll be able to hear tonight. So we've asked Councilmember Van Broderick to offer an invocation, after which our planning director, Mike Florence, will ask the audience to follow him in the Pledge of Allegiance. Van?
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the many blessings that was given us. Grateful that we could meet on this beautiful day this evening for the Lindon City Council meeting. We're grateful for the freedoms of our country, for this great land that we live in, and pray for the leaders of our nation to make good and righteous decisions. We're grateful for the state of Utah and where we live, and for the many good people that live here in Lindon. Please bless and be with them and their families, and help them to be safe and successful in the things that they're doing. We are grateful for our first responders, for our police and EMS and fire personnel. Grateful for their service. Please keep them safe and the wonderful things that they do to help our community be safe. We're grateful for each of our city employees for their service. Please bless them. And we invite Thy Spirit now to be with us tonight as we discuss the things that are pertinent to us at this time, and grateful for those that have come to make presentations. Help us to listen carefully and understand the things that we need to. And we offer this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Audience, please arise and repeat the pledge of allegiance after me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Van. Let's go ahead and do a roll call. Carolyn, you want to start us off, please?
Carolyn Lundberg, present.
All present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Acerson, present.
Mike Vanchery, present.
Van Broderick, present.
Thank you, council. It's always nice to have a full complement. It always provides great discussions, so thank you. Let's go ahead and address the minutes for suggested approval of the January 4th, 2020. Is it 20? It's 21. That's a typo, okay. At least I can read. My vision's still good, but any corrections, additions would be appropriate this time?
I don't know how important it is, Mayor, maybe it's not even worth mentioning.
No, go ahead.
On page 4, line 29, it talks about the auditors, the outside auditors, and it said representatives from whatever the firm is.
We just had one.
We just had the one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, again,
Thank you.
not trying to be picky, just trying to. Great, thank you.
Just prove that you read the minutes. That's
Yeah,
good.
fine
That's
tooth
good.
comb. I love it, Mike. I didn't
That's
see
always
any other
good.
changes. Mayor, I'll motion that we approve the January 4th, 2021 minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Van. Hearing a motion by Jake, a second by Van. Any further discussion? I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Council reports. I'm going to start to my right. Let Van start us off with council report, and we'll go to Mike and proceed that direction.
Yes, it is the time for the irrigation companies' meetings. This Saturday, February 6th, we'll have our North Union Irrigation Company meeting that I'll be attending. We'll have a board of directors meeting first, and then the shareholders will meet. I'm needing a little help on Saturday, February 13th is the Hollow Water meeting, and I will be out of town. That will be at 9 o'clock right here. I'm trying to remember who my secondary was.
Who's
I
his
could've looked it
backup?
up.
I will have to look that up.
I've got it narrowed down to 4.
I'll find that and send whomever it is an email. so.
If
So it's
it's
on
me,
a-
if it's me, I'm out of town. I can't remember.
On a Saturday?
Yes, that is Saturday the 13th.
How long does usually last, Van?
That one will go an hour for sure, maybe an hour and a half.
I'm happy to,
It's
I'm
either
happy
me.
to attend for you if that's, I mean, just whatever.
So just let us know.
So you have some options.
That would be appreciated. That's one that requires a little diplomacy. Is that fair?
Been there, done that, yeah.
I've heard about it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, we've been following a little bit of that email chain I think you've seen with the complaint of the horses. You know, I've looked at that as well as Mike has. The question is trying to decide if we want to look at that further to see if there's, you know, they send all that data regarding what horses do after they eat their hay and what that means. And the discussion would be, or the question is if we want to look at what our city ordinance is, or if we're okay with just how it is currently.
I did go ahead and send a courtesy notice on that.
You're his second.
And I've asked them by email that they haven't responded to. He had told me he was gonna go talk to them. And I asked him if he had done that, and I still haven't heard anything back from him, so.
Can't
I
believe
looked
it
at,
keeps
I looked
changing.
at the ordinance and read it over a couple times, and I don't think it gives any specific guidance or direction so much as it does at least imply that the horse owner has some responsibility to make sure that it's clean, it's sanitary, whatever, and yeah, I don't know. I was planning on going out there today, but I didn't make it. But if it smells, if it is indeed you know, I know being on the farm, it seeps sometimes. If it rains, if it gets wet, it'll seep out a little bit. And
I think their probably biggest concern has been airborne particulates that when it does get dry,
Yeah.
that it goes over into their property and all of the concerns that that may have.
And I believe that to be a valid concern. I mean, I think, yeah, guess it'd be interesting to see what he's with.
If you would like to address that ordinance, we can. It seems about every 6 or 8 years we're doing that.
Yeah.
And
No,
the
no,
A
last
little bit
time we
of
did
country's
it,
turned
it
into a
was-
little urbanization and people move into an area where there could be horses and
These
because
are
of that.
longtime neighbors, it
Yep,
seems
these
like. I'm kinda
neighbors have been
surprised
together
that
a
they
long
don't
time.
just
There's something
communicate,
else
but-
amiss there. I don't
Well,
know.
and that's why I had asked them about going over, and he said he would, but I do know that there's some that like the city to be the bad guy
Yeah,
that comes and, but I was just, when I look at his letter and all the data that he provided, you know, he had mentioned like a concrete floor underneath and then the straw or whatever on top. If,
yeah, again, if
That's-
that's the way you wanna go, then that
No.
applies citywide.
oh, I
mean,
know.
I'll say right up, no,
I'm
I-
asking the question
not the
just
way it
like
goes.
you are.
It's a slippery slope.
Goes into the earth, and that's where we want it. As
We
long
may
as
be
it's not too
okay
much of it.
exactly where it is.
Well, it's just, it's maintenance, and perhaps the homeowners are not maintaining
See
the,
where Mike's letter
Right.
goes to the horse owners and if we can make some headway that direction first.
That's
And
what I
then,
asked him, was to put it,
Mhm.
you know, just to regularly maintain it, throughout the year. And I gave him, you know, some time to get it cleaned up right now, and then I asked him to put it, you know, just regularly maintain it throughout the year.
Mike, in your letter, it appeared to me that you felt it wasn't out of order, but are you saying that it has had some,
Well,
Build up.
in November, I stood on the sidewalk and I couldn't, it didn't look like there was a ton
okay,
of, you know, excessive manure there, so, I didn't do anything about it, but I did mention to the neighbor, I said, if you would like me to send a courtesy notice, I would. I never heard back from them. So then when we got this email the other day, I did go out there again, I didn't really, what the smell wasn't extremely strong, but I did go ahead and send a courtesy notice.
I also went over into the corner of the park there, the city park, which is 10 feet from the corral, and I could smell it from there, but 15 feet away, it's gone. And so that's where it probably depends on the wind and the day and the heat and the moisture and
well, that's what it does with horses. I know, having had them since we've lived in Lindon for over a quarter century. It's that ebb and the flow of, this is, I don't, you know, that I've had a long history with, before I was even on the council, dealing with the animal ordinances, and we had one health inspector from the county came out, and you wouldn't have found cleaner paddocks than ours, and he wanted us to pick up the manure every single day, keep it in a container, and fortunately, we got through that one, but, so there's gotta be a happy medium in there, that being responsible horse owners and not having to pick it up and putting it in a waste container every day, so.
Yeah.
So I'm curious where this will go. It's just something I wanted to kind of ask that question. I was probably more concerned with the data that he had provided health-wise, that this will probably something that keeps coming up every 8 years. And if that truly is a health hazard that we should be aware of.
Okay, Mike, stay on top of it, you know,
Just let
probably,
us know. I'm not, just wanted input.
yeah.
So at this point, nothing further, just keep following up. Just one last thing that you'll probably be seeing if you haven't seen it already, and I know, Adam, you do a good job in the League of Cities and Towns, but this House Bill 82 with basement rentals. Probably for me, the bigger discussion on this is when legislators say, we don't want to step on cities' toes,
And then they
but
do.
we're
Then they-
going to,
Right?
because this circumstance dictates it. And then the other part of it that concerned me was city councils don't think about people that don't live in their city because they don't have a vote. And that just seems like strange philosophy, is that for basement, in this particular case, basement rentals should be mandated by the state to have them go, because the people that need it don't live in our city and they don't have the opportunity to come to a city and complain.
What?
I'll give you a quick overview when we get to my administrator's report of some of this legislation.
Yeah, there are a couple of legislative
And
things
they-
that we need to be aware of.
And they always will be,
Yeah.
but this one is an interesting one, already in the news, and,
Okay.
but like I said, the bigger picture for our legislators, we don't wanna step on your toes, and then they just go ahead and squash them.
Yeah.
It's a little bit ironic. I spoke with one of our representatives and about that very topic. About each year, that's kind of what we're looking out for, is what's the next slew of overreach that we feel that should be handled on the local level. And the response was, well, you should see how it is for us with federal. We feel overreaching into state. So it's a domino effect, but I don't know that I got a satisfactory answer.
And to that point, maybe Adam will address this, but I will say that I have to ask myself, how many of our state legislatures have ever sat on a city
And
council?
that's part of the problem,
Right,
I think, too. They're thinking on it, they're not thinking on the micro level.
You wanna, if you wanna run at the state level, you ought to serve in the city first, right?
At least have a little bit of an experience
Experience
with us.
is a great teacher,
It is.
yeah. Okay,
That's it, thank you.
okay, Mike?
We have been, we meaning the North Point Solid Waste Special Services District, have been looking at, for a while, a software program.
Hey, Mike, can
Oh, we
you
can't
use
hear you.
your microphone?
Oh,
Put
yeah,
that right in front of you, that'll help, thanks.
I'll take this off even, so, thank you. As a board, North Point, we've been looking at a recycle audit software called Recycle Coach. You may or may not have heard of that. We're getting the particulars on it. They're gonna make us a presentation, but of course, my first question was, what does it do and how much does it cost? What it does is a lot of things. It reminds neighbors of when the recycling is, what kind of things they can recycle, they can't recycle. It just gives them a whole list of information from the city. The total cost with all the add-ons appears to be about $75,000, but that is distributed between all the member cities based on the number of homes where trash collection services are take place. So my sense is that if you take the number of homes in Lindon as a percentage of all of the member cities for North Point and divide it into 75,000, the cost would likely be fairly nominal. So what I'm going to suggest is, once we get the details, I know we're going into the budget hearings and so forth starting in February sometime, that we allow Neil Schwendeman, the director, to come and give us a brief presentation and see if that's something we might be interested in. I'm not sure what the history has been, successful, neutral, bad, I don't know.
No, I think it's great. I mean, anything that they feel as a group that would benefit our citizenry and what the cost would be, I think that's appropriate for them to come and present that to us and allow the council to have that discussion, ask questions. And
Great. I'll coordinate that
Yeah,
with
that's good.
Adam, if that's okay. And then, besides talking to Mike and discussing community development issues and so forth, I can't honestly think of anything that is pressing at this point. We do have we do have some interest in that property to the north of us that the Solid Waste District owns. Our issue, of course, is yes, we could probably sell it and do quite well, but then we have to turn right back around and find another piece for at least as much, if not more. So that always is a concern. So it's in the discussion stages, but the developer or the realtor that called me and talked to me was fairly enthusiastic. Had his client with him, and he didn't tell me who or identify himself, but there is a possibility that we might see something happen there. So
yeah, it was American Fork, probably. No, I'm kidding.
I think it was no, never mind.
No,
I'm not going to say it. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
okay.
Just a couple Parks and Rec updates. Our Arena Exploration Committee is going to meet this February 10th. I think Mike and Carolyn have been involved in that pretty heavily, exploring various options for our arena, both renovation and perhaps new options that they're exploring. So Heath brought up that they are looking into some Christmas ideas. I know, Randy, that's been something you're pretty passionate about. I'm excited about as well. They'll have some ideas, both big and small, for our budget kickoff meeting coming up here. So excited about that. Last, our slide that we've approved is moving forward. Heath approved the color scheme just this week and wanted me to show the council, if you guys can see that, little blue with white on the bottom. They're pretty excited about it. So
Is that a
Ooh, that's
purple
gonna
on there?
look nice.
a dark blue. Does
Okay.
look a little purple. So things are moving forward there, and that's it for me.
Okay, Randy?
I'll take off where Jake was talking about the Christmas decorations. I've been in talks with our Park and Recs department in dealing with some budget issues that we want to bring to you, and we've come up with some really good ideas. We're really excited, so we're just excited to see you in 2 weeks at our budget kickoff meeting. Let's see, I attended the Public Works meeting with Juan on the 12th, and we talked about the fact that we got a Safe Routes to School grant for $75,000, so we're excited about that. That's on 400 East from 600 North to Center Street on the east side. So that won't start till next year, is that right? Till
2022.
Yep, till 22. But that's an exciting thing. I attended with Carolyn and the mayor and Jake, the State of the City's address for the Pleasant Grove Lindon Chamber of Commerce. That was a really nice event, and thank you for that invitation for all involved. Mayor did a good job.
Great job.
Yep,
Mayor is
proud
the
to
mayor.
have him as our mayor and
You
say,
get, right?
and bragging on our city, and I'm grateful for all the things that he shared. That afternoon, on the 12th, I was able to attend with Mike the award of the Business of the Month at Crumble here in Lindon. So got to speak with the owner there, just a really fine gentleman, and he was telling us that he's looking potentially in about 2 years, his lease is up, and he's wanting to stay in Lindon, but he is looking for something that is the possibility of a drive-through potential, which they don't typically do with Crumble, and it's a special need, and he would like us to keep an eye out for a potential place for him to be. He's needs about, I think, what did he say, like 14 to 2,500 square feet? Yeah, so let's keep him in town and make sure that we help find him a spot. So all of those are in the know for that one. Let's see. Chief Brower gave us an update on some really wonderful things and some not so wonderful things in our city. And I just wanted to say thank you, Chief, for handling the situation with the forcible entry so well. This is a family that's near and dear to my heart. And I've spoken with the family a couple of times, and they are just, besides the cookies and card that they brought you, they're just overwhelmed with love for the city and grateful for the extra patrols that they've had. So big kudos to Officers Sampson and Simmons for all the work that they did in that particular case, and of course in making sure that some nefarious actions were uncovered on, I guess it ended up being in Vineyard, is that correct? So thank you so much for that. Let's see, sorry, I've got a few more extra things here. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about is I've spoken with Chief Brower and with Mike Florence about a topic that I'd like to see us visit here as a city council, and that would be the topic of massage businesses. And Chief Brower has some, what do I want to say? So a background in the Special Victims Task Force with Utah County, and then Mike Florence has had experiences in South Salt Lake prior to coming to here, which has had issues. And I'd like to see us look at tightening up our ordinances to make sure that there is a delineation between therapeutic and a massage parlor kind of atmosphere. And I say that because I've noticed neighboring cities having had them pop up into their cities. And I've spoken with some people that are in the know in some of these towns that I know, and saying that they wish that they'd have taken a little bit better proactive approach to this. And in fact, Mike and I, as we were looking through the land use tables, there was a couple of things that were concerning for us. And so just like to see if perhaps we can do something like that in the very near future.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay?
Yeah, anytime we can firm up the city and how we govern and what we allow to happen that's appropriate with the community, I'm all in favor of that, so.
Thank you very
let's go
much.
ahead and
Just
have that discussion.
making sure that we make, some of the city entities like that also are front for other nefarious acts such as trafficking of drugs and of humans. So we want to make sure we do what we can to help maintain community standards. And I think that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, Carolyn?
All right, a couple things have already been covered, so I'll just be brief. The Chamber is having the annual awards gala on February 11th, and so some of you have already gotten back with Mike on your RSVP for that. If you're still planning on that, let him know, and so we can get you taken care of. And then I did have a new community member reach out to me regarding the vehicle that is nearly permanently parked on 200 South. At least it's there every night, every morning. Just saying it's a little bit difficult to navigate coming on to 200 South in the mornings, looking up the hill and not being able to see clearly a clear line of sight up the hill. And so I just wanted to.
So they live on the Orem side and park on the Lindon side, is that correct?
Residents in Lindon have been, yes, so I know Adam had followed up, had our police.
We had an officer go talk to that individual, but they are not parking illegally, and so that is the dilemma. It does not violate any of our ordinances. I had 2 officers go by. This is before Chief Brower was here, and so I'll get him up to speed, have him go take a look, but both officers felt it was not a site hazard. And so that's the dilemma we're facing. We have a resident who's concerned about it perpetually. They're not violating any rules. We've got
Yeah, this
officers
was a
saying
new
it's not a hazard.
individual.
It's a new individual?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I don't know what to do about that, Carolyn.
We had talked about maybe just, again, having like a courtesy conversation, just saying, hey, are you aware
Yeah,
there's
and I
some
understood
concern?
that took place. It was Officer Welker actually went and
Okay.
talked with the owner of the vehicle. So, again,
Except fact that it doesn't meet any need to red curb that area.
that's
or
what I
anything.
was informed. And then I've driven by myself, and there is a second or so if a car is traveling down the road that, I can see where they could be in a blind spot, but it's fairly minimal in my opinion as well. I don't know if you've driven to that location and looked at
I
it.
have.
Okay.
I have
But-
too, it's always there. How did he
Again,
respond about moving up just a little bit? Was that asked of him, do you know?
I don't know that. So let me follow up with the chief and see what he thinks, but again, I guess
It seems like a
if
conversation.
you as a city council want us to red curb that,
Yeah,
we can. But there's nothing right now from what I received from Officer Welker that,
It was set back from the corner within the distance.
it only has to be back 30 feet, and they're parked back 50 or 60. And so,
I want
Find
to say
out
if he
from
lives in Orem, park on the Orem side of the street. What's so hard about that? But
yeah.
I know that's a
it's-
simple solution, but.
Public street, right? But it's, well, was there any conversation, feedback when Officer Welker had that friendly conversation with him about?
I don't have that information, so.
If, get our chief of police up to
Okay.
speed and then see if a conversation can take place, just so we can represent our citizens and try to do right with the other people that are on the street, just to see if we can't come to some common ground, I mean, if I parked in somebody's house and they asked me to move, I'd move my car. I mean, it's not that hard. But,
Well,
but they have the legal right to park
there's-
there, but.
Yeah, there's more discussion that we may want to have, and,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good photo, so the
It's on
concerning
Google Maps.
vehicle is this one. So are none of these concerns for those other driveways? That was part of my recollection when I went out and looked. Further up the street,
move.
there's multiple vehicles that park on the side of the road there.
That
and
one,
it's a very
though,
wide
is at
shoulder.
that's at a nexus point where people trying to make their way on to 200 South. Those other locations are well in the middle
But
point
And
of the
they
block.
move.
Driveway though?
And they move frequently. I think it's,
Okay,
yes.
so again,
Yeah.
they're not violating any code or ordinance, and so that's, if you would like us to red curb from there up to the church, or from there up to this property, we can.
Can we put a shorter parking limit time on that little side there?
I just didn't
Oh,
where
I
does
think
that
we
red
might have
curbing
some
end?
residents who would
If-
like to comment on this, Mayor, if you
During
could
the,
invite them during,
Maybe during the public comment, you can address this at that time. We're just
Okay.
doing council reports. Okay.
It's you're kind of hard pressed to say it's an issue if it's never been an issue. If there's
Well,
never been
we've
It's
heard
been a
about it, but
long-standing
I
issue,
mean,
though.
Officer Edwards and Officer Welker both got back to me and felt that it was not a concern, and so
I'll say
let
more
me,
concern than an issue. It's been more concern than, so.
let me follow up with the chief and we'll,
I think
have
if you
him
were to
take a
take a
look at it
straw
as
poll,
well.
Mayor, of that particular neighborhood, it's more than it's well more than two individuals. This is
Oh, I'm sure it is.
this is
I
many
mean,
people have had that.
you know, if they're
concern.
trying to get onto the street where it's an intersection, or at least that T, you know, your sight's impaired. I mean, there are times on any street when you can't see as well as you'd like to, and I go, man, why are they parking there? And yet it's probably a legal parking place, and unfortunately, you know, I don't know. Let's delve into it a little
I'm
bit more.
sure
and-
There's two schools, there's a tremendous amount of traffic at particular times of the day. People trying to get their kids to the two schools that are on that street, and naturally, a lot of people, that's their main inlet, outlet to commute to work
and I'm
as
sure it's
well.
exacerbated by the
The
slope
speed.
of, the speed and then the
People are
slope of
going-
the hill.
Are you guys okay to just red curb it up a ways? I am.
I would love to hear from some of the residents that are here to see if they feel that
During public
having it
comment.
set back it would be a good solution,
I
or
think-
maybe not at all. I don't, so we can
Yeah,
work on that.
I was gonna ask a follow-up, which is not the exact same situation, but can a private owner of property, can they put a no parking sign up that would negate that?
no.
Because that's happening
a
up
public
at the
street.
Lindon Steak Center up there. I don't know if you've noticed that. They've put official signs out there that no parking. So I'm not trying to say we should or shouldn't have them do that. I was surprised to see that, and the city's probably not even aware of that. Is that?
In front of the church up in.
Yeah, because of the hill,
Is that what, I mean, I was surprised to see
I wasn't
those.
aware of that, so.
yeah, people were complaining that when they came out of the church, they couldn't.
Because it's a similar situation. I mean, it's the line of sight or view. So, anyway, look into it, come back with more discussion, and then it sounds like we have some support to red curb it if we need to. And
We could red curb it all the way up to that fire
area could be
hydrant,
fine to red curb too.
if that's acceptable to them. I think that's
With the church up above it and
an
everything.
easy fix.
we okay with that? I mean, I think we'll,
Yeah, and Randy brought up a good point too, is on that same block, just behind the truck, you have people, sometimes large numbers coming in and out of the church parking lot as well. So it is
Just up
somewhat of a
above there,
unique
yeah.
unique location to consider.
Traffic's a little faster on that street too.
It's quite.
whether it's legitimate or not, it is faster. I mean, yeah.
Well, I know this is for discussion, but I'd like to just say, we try to be very careful about government overreach. And it concerns me that there's places all over the city, I can think of 2 or 3 in my neighborhood, where if you get enough people to come in and say it's an issue, or then we start red curbing places all over the city. And if it's legal, and if it's within the confines of the ordinance or the law or whatever it would be, I find it a little difficult to just unilaterally say, we're gonna make that.
Not that we're voting tonight, but we have one vote for red curb, one for not.
No vote, I'm just making.
No, I'm just saying that there needs to be more discussion, I think,
Sure,
and
sure.
decide whether the ordinance that we have in place is
I think that's
sufficient,
electric
or
road.
if we need to somehow adapt it, so.
Roads are definitely.
We'll leave it in your court, if you can kind of make recommendations, if you counsel with our chief of police, and just see if there's any additional changes we need to make as a council, and what those options might be. Okay?
Safety issue.
Is that good?
Thank you.
Carolyn, anything else?
That's great. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
Adam?
So, a few things, just on, just a reminder on our budget kickoff meeting, Wednesday, February 17th at 5:30. Kathy will be sending out some information on, that'll be a working dinner meeting here in this room for our budget kickoff. Our next regular meeting's March 1st and March 15th. And then I've listed there the dates for our spring cleanup in April. If you have anybody asking about that, that's where we'll put out the dumpsters around town. And then just an update on some of the legislative issues. So this morning, we had a legislative policy committee meeting with the League of Cities and Towns, and there's actually this bill that Van mentioned, House Bill 82, has gotten some news coverage. There's been a first and a second substitute to that. The original bill, the League is still in a position of opposition to that. What that bill would do is essentially mandate all residential zones would have to allow ADUs, accessory dwelling units. For Lindon, where we've allowed those since the mid-90s, that's probably not a huge issue, except in the Fieldstone and Ivory developments, where currently we don't allow those because of some of the density that's already out there. But everywhere else in town, theoretically, somebody could put it in if they wanted to. So interestingly then, this morning at about 9 o'clock, Val Peterson has written another bill. It's HB 273, and it is a very similar bill, mandates that ADUs are a permitted use in all residential zones. And then it is pretty hardcore. It prohibits cities from regulating parking, from regulating the size of the structure, the number of bedroom units. It prohibits cities from collecting impact fees on ADUs. So just a heads up that caught me off guard, that Val had
Yeah,
a concern with that.
I
don't
think
know.
that's, well, I could be wrong. I may be jumping to conclusions, but where he works at UVU, there was quite a battle down there in some of the higher density housing and what they were trying to accomplish there that would
Okay.
be complementary to the university. And so maybe this is an offshoot from the frustrations they went through in that process, so.
So this draft bill, well, it's not draft any longer. It was introduced today. So this first introduced version also waives some building code requirements that are, again, a concern. And so fire separation, firewalls, heating and ventilation, access to electrical panels, things like that,
Even some egress if it impacts structural.
that could be, I don't remember that one in there. So anyways, just a heads up, the league is kind of feeling like there's a lot of pressure. Now we've got 2 competing bills and several legislators that are interested in this concept. So they're kind of at a position of, let's manage this and see if we can get a bill that's the least detrimental as possible, while still accommodating some of these concerns from the legislature, so.
I'll reach out to him tomorrow and just see the premise of where that came from and what he's hoping to accomplish. And
There's a outdoor advertising billboard ordinance that would allow billboard companies to convert any of their signs to digital and limit cities' ability to regulate the lighting that is emitted from that. There's one about building regulations that has kind of been put on hold in committee, but it was waiving a lot of inspection and plan review requirements. Some other ones that just I wanted to highlight here.
Adam, on that sign, the league has taken a position of opposition to that, haven't they?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. One that is interesting that you may hear more about, it's a property tax deferral modification, which would allow anybody 66 and older with a home valued less than $500,000 to defer their property taxes. And I'm skimming through this bill, but from what I can tell, I think that's until till they pass or they
It's a
sell the
break
home.
to senior citizens, basically is what it is.
And the
So
estate would
that-
have to
that's a concern to a lot of public entities, school districts, cities, counties, other special service districts, because it
California
would
has
pull
that.
those out of the property tax pool, and which we've taken bonds down on.
Is it a deferment though?
It's
So
a
they would-
deferment, so
So
they
it
would-
would lien the property, and then when the property sells, it gets
Yeah,
paid.
it's-
They would recoup that money.
The end, yeah. So the entities would collect eventually, but for entities that have taken down bonds on specific revenue projections based on their property taxes, or depend on that money for other services, then that's the concern, I think, for most of these taxing entities, so. A positive one that's passed the House today, HB 128, it's, would increase the general fund balance from 25% to 35% for local cities. And so that's a nice thing. So,
Who's driving that one?
I don't know offhand.
They
so-
realize that. They realize that, you know, you need to have that expansion to be able to deal, you know, COVID has kind of taught them that a little bit. So I think there's an appetite to allow cities.
On that one?
That was
128?
128, HB 128, so.
I'm surprised it's that high, because what I initially heard, it wasn't quite that high, but that's pretty good.
And what was Val's number, sorry?
HB
73.
273. So, if you're interested in that, the league has a very active roster of bills that they're watching and tracking, and it lists, they're color-coded, red, orange, green, and if we're in opposition as a league or supporting, or neutral. And so if you're interested, you can look at their website and find that, or I can send you a link, so.
I'd like that.
Moving fast, though, they said they're getting about 50 new bills per day, so. That's all I have.
That's it? Okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Speaking to the league, is there any chance that we know of that the league is going to do any virtual training, you know, to compensate for the fact of us not going to the conferences because of COVID? Have they talked about that? Do we know?
I know it's come up, and I don't recall what that answer is, so I'll look that up and send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your reports, and thank you, Adam. And, you know, I did have one question on the, you know, the cities were required to make a report to the state as it pertained, you know, you could choose of a whole menu of things, areas, which we did. We picked, I think, 5 is what they required. And I heard a report saying that I think everyone submitted, but not all cities complied. Have you heard that? Yeah, that came out, either the league made that statement or that was in a committee meeting at the state legislature. So I sense that it must have been on housing and affordability and things of that nature. I sense that there was still an appetite to push even harder towards the cities. They had some city officials weigh in on that, but it sounded like the state didn't get what they were hoping to get from that. So just a heads up on that, if you can reach out and help us as a city to be aware of maybe the push points where they're gonna go. Because I know we were specific in our choices, and we felt that that was adequate and appropriate. But I'm sensing that may not be the case at the state level, so let's just watch that, okay?
Mayor, I did have a brief question.
Sure.
I sent out some photographs this afternoon.
I saw that,
Just wonder if anyone had a chance to look at those. and
Yeah.
See how kind of cool that was.
yeah.
God, it's crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
Doesn't seem that long ago to,
I know.
a lot of growth.
Pretty young person in there, that one picture.
I'd say.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to presentations and announcements. Amelia, you're on. Thank you for waiting.
No problem.
It's unbelievable.
I'm having back issues and your chairs are killing me.
Well, I just want to say, I was excluded from the election process. I always volunteer, and I'm sure it was because of my age. And I was in that class of, anyway.
Officially, we do not discriminate based on age. That would be called ageist, and it is not allowed. But we did actively recruit younger people this election cycle who are below the risk category.
That's a nice political position to take, yeah.
So, I think we have a video. Do you guys have the video?
I believe so, yeah.
I am wondering, why Catherine needs a guard and nobody else does. Was she bad? Is that timeout?
Because I requested.
Okay.
She swears a lot.
I just want to make sure that you weren't being isolated against your will.
No.
You pronounce your name Amalia, right?
No, Amelia.
That
So
that was my next
No, the
guess.
Washington Post got it wrong.
Okay, well, I was wondering in the
No,
article.
it was
said
the
Amalia.
Washington Post was incorrect.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So you would like us to show this then?
Yes.
Okay,
Show this video.
let's see if I
Utah
can get
County
this
Clerk
on.
Auditor. Utah County has been voting by mail since 2017. Utah County is not new to vote by mail, and we're confident in our ability and the United States Postal Service to run this election accurately and securely. This is an important election for our country, and Utah County Elections Division wants to make sure that every eligible voter in our county has an opportunity to cast their ballot. Our first round of ballots were mailed the week of October 12th. If you recently registered to vote or updated your voter registration or are planning to register to vote or update your voter registration soon, your ballot will be mailed as soon as it is processed. Remember to do it sooner rather than later. The voter registration deadline is October 23rd at 5 p.m. Once you receive your ballot, research the candidates, judges, and anything else on your ballot. Mark your ballot as you wish and put it inside the ballot envelope. Seal the envelope and be sure to sign it. We can't count your ballot without your signature. Then drop it in the mail or a drop box and be sure to wear the I voted sticker that we included in your ballot instructions. Once you have returned your ballot, you can track its status at vote.utah.gov. Your ballot is processed exactly the same, whether you drop it off at a county drop box, use the United States Postal Service, or vote at the polls on Election Day. All ballot envelopes are collected by Election Division staff working in teams of at least 2 people. Ballots are weighed when they're picked up from the drop boxes and weighed again when received in the ballot center. Weighing the ballots twice ensures that the same amount of ballots picked up in the field by our staff equals the same amount of ballots that are received at the ballot center. Upon arriving at the ballot center, ballot envelopes are scanned through our ballot sorting system to verify the voter has not already voted. We then mark all accepted ballots as received in the voter registration system. An image of each ballot envelope is also captured and used to verify signatures. Any ballots received for a voter who has already voted are marked for review and not processed. Your signature on the ballot envelope is compared to signatures we have on file, as well as the signature on your Utah driver's license. Ballots of any voter whose signature does not match our records or ballot envelopes that are not signed are flagged in the system and require manual inspection by the Utah County Elections Division staff before the ballot can be counted. Once signature verification is complete, ballot envelopes are scanned through our ballot sorting system again and sorted into districts. If the envelope is unsigned or the signature doesn't match our voter records, the voter is notified and is given the opportunity to cure their signature so that we can count their ballot. Ballots are then extracted from their envelopes using one of our 4 OPEX machines. These machines allow us to quickly extract ballots from their envelopes while maintaining voter confidentiality. Extracted ballots are unfolded and flattened in preparation for scanning. Ballots are tabulated using our high-speed ballot scanners. These scanners capture an image of the front and back of the ballot while votes cast are tabulated. Any ballot that has stray marks, write-in votes, or any other anomaly that prevents the scanner from tabulating that vote is sent to adjudication. This is where at least 2 members of the election staff review each of those ballots cast for voter intent. We have monitors viewable from the outside of the ballot center so anyone can watch this process. After ballots are scanned, they are placed in ballot storage boxes by batch with all corresponding reports kept for archiving and auditing purposes. For those who wish to vote in person on Election Day, You may arrive at the in-person location and check in using our electronic poll book. The poll book is synced in real time and prevents anyone from voting twice. When you arrive at a polling location, present your valid ID to the poll worker and sign for your ballot. You will then receive a paper ballot and envelope. Once you have marked your ballot how you wish to vote, place your ballot inside the envelope you receive and drop it inside any of the Utah County ballot drop boxes. For voters who need accommodations, ADA voting machines will be available. The machines will assist you by producing a marked paper ballot that reflects your choice. You will place the ballot inside an envelope and then drop it in a Utah County ballot drop box. Thank you from everybody at the Utah County Elections Office.
So that gives an overview of the process of how we process the ballots. Do you guys have any questions for us?
I'll shoot out with
No,
some.
I've got
if you don't
some,
mind.
but I'll wait for, yeah.
So I love the video presentation, I've watched it a couple of times. So when you do, and all of this, I'm gonna start with, I think that we're doing a fabulous job here.
Thank you.
We see lots of things in the news nationally, so that brings the question that we get asked a lot. As, you know, council members or whatever, how do you know that the integrity is maintained? Very helpful on your presentation here, thank you. I'm gonna ask just the question, you know, when you count the votes with that scanner, how accurate is it?
We go back and do audits. We do what are called risk limiting audits, and we go through and we pull those, and those come back at 100%.
I think that's the acceptable answer, I love that.
Yeah, and we don't even control the audit. The state lieutenant governor's office, the state elections office, they send us a random batch, and we have to pull that random batch, and then we hand check it against those numbers. And what we're looking for is 100% accuracy.
One other question, there was this kind of the screen or the window in the screen for observers. And there's talks about, what was the term, election staff. Are political parties or candidates, are they able to send people inside?
Yes,
to
absolutely.
watch the process, or do they have to be out in that?
So in Utah County, we did not restrict any poll watchers. If there were official poll watchers, we did not restrict where they could go. Political parties or candidates. We did have them check in, you know, we checked their temperature, they checked in, we gave them a name badge and so that we could make sure they weren't touching anything. But we did not restrict them at all. And you can see those big windows. I saw on the news, you could see, like, I saw on Twitter, there were places around the country where they were covering up the windows. And the irony of that is that when we got that space, it didn't have windows. We literally cut holes in the wall and put windows in so that people could see. The general public can come into that lobby at any time and they can film at any time. Oftentimes, the candidates and political parties, as you can imagine, Ben McAdams had someone there every minute of every day watching everything we did. And we welcomed that, but we did allow them access inside the building. Not all offices in the state did that. I know that other counties restricted where poll watchers could go and what they could do. We did not restrict that. In fact, at one point, my bishop actually came and volunteered for a while. And at one point, I came to sit next to him to thank him for coming, and I was trying to have a conversation with him. It wasn't like a personal conversation, but it wasn't a professional conversation. And there was like a poll watcher like right in my face. And it was like, we're literally talking about like my son getting ordained next month. Like, could you take a step back? But we didn't.
And I trust he was at the age of that younger generation. That-
Absolutely. Otherwise, we would have called you and had you go. Any other questions?
I have some. I don't know if anyone
Please,
else has.
Randy.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how you populate the voter records? I know there's a purging process, and that's the portion I'm actually most interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have done a ton of work since I took office in maintaining our voter rolls and making sure they're accurate. Prior to me coming into office, Utah County hadn't done a real good purge on our voter rolls since 2012.
Okay.
When I came into office in 2019, we had anywhere between a 10 and a 15% return to sender rate. That means about 10 to 15% of the ballots that we sent out came back as an invalid address. We worked very hard to, the national average is about 5%. We were able to do so much maintenance on that we're actually down below about a 3%. So we're significantly ahead of the national average. In 2020 alone, we touched about 135,000 voter records. We have a total of 326,000. So pretty close to half the voter records were updated. There was a large influx of people that are updating their own voter registration records, but on top of that, just automatically, we check the vital statistics office and the obituaries on a weekly basis. So we're looking for any potentially deceased voters. We're lining that information up with the voter rolls and removing them from the active voter rolls. The other thing that we're looking for is the National Change of Address Database. So it's called the NCOA. We have a subscription to the NCOA and we run that several times a year. And before we send out ballots, we go through that NCOA. We make sure that if people have moved, they've put in a change of address. We pull their registration to inactive and we send them a postcard. Hey, we have a note that you have moved. If this is incorrect, let us know.
Okay. And so to that, you say you're checking the county records for marriages or those types of things, or are
So
you?
we don't check marriages, we do check deaths because not everybody will change their name in a marriage, but we're checking for anyone who's moved
Okay.
and anyone who has deceased.
Anecdotally, I've got neighbors who have, one neighbor had 3 of her married children got their, and have moved on, got ballots at their home this
Yeah.
year.
If
So-
she were to drop any of those in a ballot drop box, call the county, email the county, or write not at this address on those, then we would remove them.
Okay.
So, and that's what we do. We get those calls all the time. If you call us, we remove them. If you put them in a drop box, we remove them. If you send them back to the postal service saying not at this address, we'll remove them.
So is there any way, is any guesstimation on how many that you've got in that kind of genre of that are children that use their parents' address as their home base, but they don't live there actually? I mean,
If they haven't actually updated their voter registration, then typically it'll take 4 times of them not returning that ballot before we're legally allowed to make them
okay,
inactive.
so it's 4 times.
Yeah, so it'll be
Okay.
4 times before we can make them inactive, unless they update their voter registration, and then that happens automatically.
Okay. And, pardon me.
Or their parents can return it to sender, and we can do it that way as well.
Correct. And I guess my concern is not the parents, but if it ends up at the address that somebody just wants to say, oh, I didn't register, I'm going to cast my vote as so-and-so. And that's where you go to the signature verification. And,
But to be clear, the reason that happens is because those voters are registered at an address where their family still lives. And so if they've not changed their address with the post office to say that I, the child of my parents, no longer live at my parents' house, then the post office will continue to deliver mail to that person at that address. But if that person lived alone and then moved to a different address, chances are pretty good they changed their address. So then anything that's delivered by the post office gets returned to sender automatically.
I will say, though, to the younger generation, a lot of them are not caring about getting anything from the post office. And so the one thing that they had to have.
Well, and a lot of them move so often that they
Correct.
maintain their parents' address as their permanent
Yeah,
address.
it's a home base. It's-
Right, so they're maintaining their bank accounts there, they're maintaining their cell phone, they're maintaining that, which is why it doesn't trigger in the moving act.
So you're saying that the act of purging is a continual process of your office?
Absolutely.
Thank you
We
for
do it
that.
multiple times a year.
Thank you for that clarification. And pardon me for the randomness of the questions that have come up. That's just, as I was viewing things, I was just scribbling down
Yeah,
things.
absolutely.
You mentioned in-person voting. So it looks like really all it is going in and actually just filling out the ballot. It's not an actual, as we have known it traditionally, to be in-person balloting.
Right, so in 2019,
voting.
we moved to 100% paper
What year?
ballots. In 2019.
Okay.
So 2019, we moved to 100% paper ballots. So we do paper ballots across the board. That gives us the continuity that we're counting all votes on the same machines. We're using the same process. It gives us less places that potential fraud could come in the process.
Okay.
So by having only one process, one type of ballot, it allows us to have a tighter control on that process. Plus, it's more auditable. So we do paper ballots across the board, whether it's by mail or in person.
So you don't anticipate ever going back to the type of voting machines that we've had in the past?
No. So part of the issue with that is in Utah County, we have really low taxes. And because of that, we can't afford our own voting machines.
Okay.
And so we have to rely on the state and federal government to buy our machines for us. And they will only pay for them if they're vote-by-mail machines. So we don't really have an option to have anything other than vote-by-mail, as long as the people who are willing to pay for the machines will only pay for vote-by-mail machines. If we wanted to consider going back, I would have to have at least double the revenue that I have in my department, which would cause, and mine is a general fund revenue, which means that the property taxes would have to go up to compensate for that. And that's not something that the commission is willing to do.
Has that been always the case that the state and federal government has always
Since the 1980s. Since the 1980s, Utah County has not had a high enough tax revenue rate to afford our own equipment.
okay. So they've just always, I know that in our community center, we've had, there was a whole stack full of the old voting machines.
And so
And those were purchased by the state, is that what
Correct.
I'm assuming?
Yeah, so those were the debold machines. Those were the ones we used prior to these machines.
Yeah,
And
with the
debold machines-
cards?
Yeah, and the debold machines were purchased by the state.
Okay,
And those now have been decertified. I think this is the last year that they could be used, and Salt Lake County used them this year, but then they're moving to a new one. But those were purchased by the state, not by us.
okay, thank you for that. Let's see, accurate mailing list, you did that one. Explain to us about the chain of custody that you have. So you talked about you're weighing it, you're putting them in the boxes. Where are they stored currently?
So up
They'd
until,
have to shoot you if they told you that, but,
when they come in from the boxes,
Okay.
when they come in from the boxes, and over 80% of our ballots came back through our drop boxes.
Nice,
Once it comes into a drop box, we have complete custody of that. The only people that have keys to those boxes are official election judges, and only minimum of 2 people are always together when they do that. They come straight to our ballot center. They don't leave our ballot center until after the election is certified. So they stay in one room of the county that has cameras and alarms from the time that they're received, scanned, put in the boxes, and they stay there until 2 weeks after the election when canvass becomes official. After canvass becomes official, we keep them for about another 30 days. And then after 30 days, they go to the warehouse, the archives warehouse that is down next to the jail. It literally shares a warehouse with the evidence locker. So as you can imagine, that's fairly secure. And they stay there for 22 months. At 22 months, then we are allowed to shred at that point.
you shred or incinerate or both?
Yeah, shred.
Okay, shred,
that's better than the IRS. You have to keep it 3 years, the
I know,
IRS. so.
right?
22 months.
22 months, very good. Let's see,
And we keep everything. We keep the envelopes, we keep the ballots, we keep extra ballots, we keep everything 22 months.
so I'm so grateful that Congressman, I just elevated you, Van, Councilmember Broderick asked to have you come before us and tell us about this, because it's, of course, been a lot of things in the news, and you have a lot of people talking about that, so some of these questions might be pointed to some clarifications on kind of the elephant in the room that we don't really talk about unless we have to, but what about the machines that we use? Can you give us some information about the machines that we use and how we acquire those, which
Yeah,
you're saying came from the state?
So we use several different vendors. The first one, we use a company called No Ink for our poll books. Those are when you check in at a polling location that we scan your ID, and we're checking the state database in real time to ensure that you haven't voted in another way, that we have no other ballot for you.
And that's for in-person balloting?
That's for in-person balloting, whether early voting or on election day. We have another vendor called Runback. They're the ones who do our printing and mailing of our ballots, but they also are the ones who make the machine that's our sorter, that comes in and takes a picture of each envelope, and that we utilize their software to check the signatures, and they're also sorting those ballots. So that machine is pretty fantastic. When a ballot and an envelope goes through, it can check it for height, thickness, width, and weight. And if there are 2 pieces of paper in that envelope, it knows and kicks it out. So if you try to put 2 ballots in one envelope, it kicks it out. Those ones will open manually, because oftentimes people just put a ballot and then the instructions for the ballot in together, but we can catch that. We're also, like I said, we're checking for weight, we're checking for measurement. All of our envelopes are custom made each election. So we know.
You can't use one from a previous year?
No, you can't
That's
use one.
nice.
So we know
Okay.
if it's meeting those specifications, and
Okay.
that machine is programmed for that. So we know how thick it's supposed to be, how much it's supposed to weigh. If you look at from year to year, sometimes our ballots are longer, and therefore a longer ballot is going to have more folds in it, and it's going to weigh more. So every single election, that machine is recalibrated for it, and we kick out anything that we know if an envelope came through with no ballot in it. it kicks those out. So that's our first machine. And then our tabulation machines are run by ES&S, which we have ES&S reps are here with us if we have any questions on theirs, but they're the ones who run our tabulators. And we get our ballot printers from them as well. So when you show up at the polling location and we print off a ballot for you there, that is printed on special paper, and it goes through those special printers, so that the scanners that we use will only utilize the correct paper. If you were to take your ballot and bring it down to Kinko's and ask them to copy it exactly, it still wouldn't go through our scanners because our scanners would recognize that it was not that specific paper.
Okay. And if I did my research right, ES&S, there's three main companies that help with nationwide, and ES&S is one of the three. Is that correct? The national firms that do this. There's Hart and then Dominion, correct?
And Clear Ballot, and there's one other.
There's a few others.
There's a few others,
smaller
there's about
ones, but those are the
smaller
big
ones,
three.
but those are
Those are the big three, okay.
And about 4 years ago, the state did a big bid and asked all of the major companies to come and bid, and ES&S won the state contract.
Okay.
So every county, after this year, every county in the state, with the exception of Salt Lake County, will be using ES&S.
ES&S. Is that replacing older machines that we've had or prior machines? So
Correct.
I guess as a point of clarity, do we or have we ever used any Dominion products?
Yeah, my predecessor used Dominion in 2018 prior to me coming into office.
Okay.
And then I canceled that contract and went with ES&S.
And so is that just the software or is that the machines or both?
All of the above.
So we don't have any of their machines? That's nice.
We do not.
Thank you for that clarity. I think a lot of people will be glad to hear that. Tell me what your actual philosophy.
Josh, for that, he found the loophole that allowed me to cancel the contract.
Thank you, Josh.
I said, I want to cancel this. Find a way how, and he did.
And so we didn't use that in 2020 at all?
No.
And you didn't, the last year was used in 18?
2018, the year that I was elected.
Okay, thank you so much. Tell me your philosophy about, I had the privilege of being a county delegate, so I got to know you during that particular time, but I liked maybe to share your philosophy of why you're in this position. I think the citizens would be very interested because I found it very refreshing.
Yeah, so I grew up in Utah County. I was born in Lehigh, raised in Provo, went to Timpview High School, spent the formative of my years here, and then I left Utah County and went to Weber State University. After 4 years at Weber State, I went to go work for Caterpillar, large tractor and engine company, and I was a service rep for them for 7 years, and then for 5 years I was a parts marketing rep. So I cut my teeth in the world of construction and engines. And then I started having kids, and I had one in North Carolina, and I had another in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I really decided that I wanted to come back home to Utah County. I had lived coast to coast, 2 countries, 4 states, and decided that Utah County is where I wanted to raise my family. And as I came home and got involved into politics, it became very apparent that the processes in Utah County elections were broken. That we had a whole bunch of well-meaning folks that did not have defined processes, did not have defined procedures, and having come through the manufacturing world, I recognized that that's when mistakes happen. When you don't have defined processes, when you don't have defined procedures, that's when you have mistakes year after year after year, and that's what we were experiencing. So I decided that I didn't want to have left my corporate career to come back to Utah County just to watch our county continue go down this path of mistakes year after year after year. And so I decided to run for office. I tried for months to commit someone else to running for this office, and after being unable to find anyone willing to come into this office and clean up the mess, in a moment of weakness, I filed to run for office and was elected, and I have spent the last 2 years creating defined processes and procedures, checklists, standard operating procedures, traveling the country looking for the best of the best and making sure that we in Utah County can be an icon for the nation.
Thank you for that. Like one question that I forgot to ask is, and that is about, there's an identifying mark on the, or numbers on the envelope, correct? Some identifier to make sure that it all coordinates with each other.
Yes.
Is there any kind of identifying mark on the ballot that is not, I'm not saying that they would ever dovetail together, but to be able to say, like, if we had 10,000 ballots, that they would be sequentially marked so that you know that anything's missing, or is there any kind of tracking of ballots?
The only kind of identifying mark on a ballot is the precinct. But
Okay.
beyond the precinct, which they have to be identified by precinct anyway, because that's how we determine who's on your ballot, is what precinct you live in, right? Beyond precinct, there's no identifying marks on the ballot. Once they are separated from the envelope, we don't even have any way through an audit or otherwise to rejoin the two.
Okay.
Drew, a couple of clarifications though. Our ballots are printed on special paper that comes from a very specific manufacturing place that's manufactured to the specifications required by our scanning machines.
Okay.
And that paper, the supplier for that paper only supplies the paper to authorized print vendors. And so we work with a very secure print vendor who gets the authorized paper, prints the ballots, and in our machinery would recognize, let's say, a ballot that was like photocopied on some more generic paper. Another thing that happens is as we tabulate the ballots, scan them, they get serialized after the fact. So there are some marks that go on the ballot that say this ballot has already been scanned.
So that we don't count the same ballot twice.
And it's basically that you can pull that out and make sure that it has been scanned. Okay.
Correct. So
Thank
that's
you.
no ballot left behind.
Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, the manufacturers for the paper, they come on huge giant rolls. And then the ballots are printed on these huge giant rolls, and then they're
then
sliced to size afterwards. And so that's how they make our paper, is on huge rolls. And like Josh said, we order that months and months ahead of time. If not like almost a year ahead of time, we're ordering that from the paper plant, and then it's going straight to our print vendors.
Thank you. One last question, and then I'm sorry for how this has
You're
gone so long,
If you
Mayor.
have a question, I'm sure that other people have it too, and I'm glad we can answer it for everyone.
My last question is, on a ballot that you have, a voter does not want to vote on a particular office. I didn't notice that there was ever any none of the above, so as to keep anybody from trying to fill in and to, that the opportunity to not have some potential for fraud introduced on a ballot that has not been completed on purpose. Is that a possibility to, I guess I'll let you address that.
One of the things we do is in our ballot center, we don't allow blue or black ink. Across the board, when you come into the ballot center, no pens that are blue or black ink are allowed. We change the color each election, but sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's bright blue, sometimes it's bright green. And we swap that out so that there's never a time that we have pens sitting around in our ballot center where somebody could grab that and fill in an oval. If someone tried to do that, it would clue to us, because it's the instructions say use blue or black ink, and that's why we only allow these bright colored pens, and we rotate it each election so that people don't have the opportunity. Being the clerk, I'm also, in Utah County, I'm also the auditor. And when we look at auditing, we look at what's called the fraud triangle. And the fraud triangle is opportunity, motivation, and justification. And we work really hard to take away people's opportunity. Because if they don't, we can't control people's motivation. That's an external source. And then as far as their opportunity goes, that's really the only thing in the fraud triangle that we can control. So we work very hard to ensure that we take away that opportunity. So not only do we only have these bright colored pens that we rotate each election in there, but we have cameras in our ballot center that run 24/7 when there are active ballots. And those ballots never leave that room. And so that gives us the opportunity to watch that. On top of that, no one person is ever allowed in the ballot center by themselves. There's always, when there are active ballots, there have to be at least 2 people in the room at all times.
I appreciate all the efforts and your transparency in telling us all these things. Is it not an appropriate thing to put something like none of the above? I'm choosing not to fill this out, so as to prohibit any potential fraud. And not to say that it would happen, but it could. Not to say it would, but it could.
Yeah, I'm fairly new to it. Margaret, is that something that most people do? Is that something that people do?
So actually, the state of Nevada does do that. On
Okay.
their ballot, they actually have a none of the above. I don't know if it's something in statute in Utah.
I don't know, we'd have to look at the statute.
Absolutely.
Thank you
It's a
for,
good suggestion.
It's a good suggestion, we can look into it.
thank you for
That's the
considering
right
that.
answer. That's what she was looking for.
Yes, thank you for looking into that. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the time, that you've allowed all this time for me.
Thanks, Randy. Carolyn?
No, thank you for just incredible transparency and research and just thinking of all those best practices. Hopefully, you can be a best practices county to look at for
Absolutely.
this to go forward. Just a quick question, are you able to tell us, with your efforts to update the voter registration rolls and which ones were still active, valid addresses, what was still your spoilage with just either ballots not signed correctly or
Good
something
question.
was flagged?
Yeah, as far as ballots that the signature didn't match, it was less than, I think it was like 400. And we had 292,000 ballots returned to us. So having less than 400 is just a small percentage. As far as ballots returned to sender, we were trending right around just under 3%. I think it was like 2.8%, but I'll have to look at what the final number was. Considering that we have 2 major universities in this county, and those are considered migrant populations, having a percentage below 5% is phenomenal. So I was very proud of that number. The national average is 5% in a county that doesn't have 2 major universities. When you consider that we have about 60,000 college students, so roughly about 20% of our registered voters are college students, and we had like a 3% return to sender rate, means that we probably have the cleanest list that you can. I was very proud of my staff over that.
Just kind of a follow-up on, when a ballot gets returned to you, not filled out, you just automatically purge it, or?
Yeah,
It's kind
so-
of, it comes back not deliverable and.
Yeah, if it comes back not deliverable, we actually scan every single one of those into the system and move them to an inactive voter. Now, if that person were to, let's say they did move, but they hadn't updated their address, but they still live in the county, if they showed up at the polls to vote on election day, and they're still a registered voter, we just won't send them an address unless they've updated their address.
One other question, do you have a method by which, we do have a lot of out-of-state students, as you mentioned. How are you able to see if they were voting in another state and then also are registered to vote in Utah?
So if they have a Utah driver's license, then we consider them a Utah resident and we allow them to vote here. If they show up at the polls on election day and they're not registered to vote here and they want to register to vote, they do have to prove residency here. So a bank statement, a utility bill, a rental agreement to show that they have become a resident here on election day.
Also, our state voter registration system is linked to a national database, and there's an interstate compact of sharing voter registration systems that our state participates in. And so we do have the ability to verify if somebody is a citizen or not, and
And we check the Social Security Administration to
Yep.
ensure that they are a U.S. citizen.
and we're able to also determine if somebody's registered elsewhere or if they've moved to our state, that kind of thing.
So typically that was handled with a provisional ballot, is that correct? You used to verify that information one way
Yeah,
or
so
the
if they
other?
register to vote same day, they do
Yeah.
still cast a provisional ballot.
Okay, they
and
still,
then- And those are typically the ballots that take a long time.
oh yeah, of course, you've got to,
Absolutely, because we have to go through and verify everything that these.
yeah. I'm surprised you only had 400 signatures that you had to verify,
So.
because that has not been the case.
Well, that's at the end.
That's
So
at
we
the
probably
end.
had 1,200
Okay.
that didn't match on first check.
But then
Okay,
after second pass.
Yeah, but you can
Okay.
Or
do some
the cure
research,
process.
you can see some of the old signatures from a previous voter registration of that same person, you can tell that,
Well-
oh, this is that person's signature.
yeah, because I've been involved in that process, and there were quite a few of them,
Also the cures, those are the ones that didn't cure
yeah.
and we weren't able to verify.
And sometimes once you get down to the bottom of the stack, you'll notice, well, wait, this is John Anderson and this is Susan Anderson, and they signed each other's ballots. You know, so those kinds of
And if we
situations.
can find a swap for swap, then we'll count both of those.
Yeah, and the amount that is there, you want to make sure every vote counts.
Correct.
But the reality of it is, it really, in most cases, won't have,
Well, and especially with the cure ballots, we contact each person a minimum of 2 times. And so if we've gone through first pass and second pass, and we've checked to see if they swapped with someone else, and we've notified them twice, if they still don't get back to us,
yeah,
then there's not a lot we can do with that.
yeah. Well, I think we're very well educated tonight. I hope that
Thank you.
everyone enjoyed that, other than someone that wants to get home tonight, and I don't know who that is, but thank you for taking the time and the opportunity. We appreciate it, all the good efforts that you put forward on behalf of our county and our citizens. Thank you. Okay, we got to get you out on a Caterpillar, see how you do.
I'm pretty good with everything, but for some reason, I'm not real great with a bulldozer. But I can do an excavator, a motor grader, a wheel tractor scraper, a wheel loader, a skid steer. But the bulldozer, I kind of make a grade that looks like this.
Yeah, it's all good. I think you found your sweet spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and open, let's see,
Juan's
no.
gonna give us a quick
Juan,
overview of.
yeah, there you go.
this.
Thank you
Wanna
for
go to our
enduring,
website,
Juan.
or-
Yeah, my turn?
Yep, you wanna
Turn.
jump up there and give us an explanation really quick?
Yeah, so, this is, we're launching, Text My Gov. Adam, I would like to go to, I logged in as myself in this one earlier today. And there's
Yeah,
a favorite, but I probably won't be
it
able to
won't.
get to it, huh?
If you want to log in again, you can.
Well, just to show you what we see on the back end.
that'd be
at our-
great.
at our dashboard. So, we launched Text My Gov, and it's a way for citizens to report to,
Issues.
issues.
Yeah.
To Public Works, but they can ask for other questions, you know, what, about the swimming pool, accounts payable, administration. And, Randy sent us a couple, messages. Today.
One was a mistake one.
Right, but we were able to respond to Randy, says, you have to enter this certain.
It was very fun to use, and I did that because I included that in the newsletter. So I wanted to have a firsthand knowledge how to do that,
good.
so.
Yeah, so, everybody can pretty much log, or save that number to their phones and, send it as a text. You can practice, see what you're gonna get there. Yeah, perfect. So we have a sewer, sidewalk, storm drain, street lights, water, PI, and then they can also ask information about, all that information got loaded from our website. It gives them a URL site that they can just click on it and takes them right to the swimming pool or to accounts payable, to the police report. So our next phase is gonna be to pass the word. We already have some flyers and,
Trust me, the word will get out, which is good.
yeah, we actually, for our next celebration, we're actually getting pens that say, Lindon Text My Gov. And then when they come and talk to us, we will also give out that information.
So can we use Everbridge or what?
So with
No, that's an
Everbridge,
emergency.
it's a one-way, and so we can send out information, but they can't send us, and so.
Well, I'm just saying, send it so they notify that this is a
Oh,
possibility.
use that as publicity.
Yeah, we can do that,
I think that would get the broad distribution, and I think it'd be welcome, so.
okay.
So we're.
I applaud this, this is great.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, now this system will also sync in with our iWork, which is the software that we use to create work orders to repair streetlights.
The tracking mechanism, yeah.
Potholes.
So it automatically will sync in, create a work order,
Yeah.
and then send that notification to the superintendent in charge of the complaint. In the past, Kathy was getting the complaints through the website, and then she'll send me a text, and then I would have to go pass it to Denise, create a work order, and it was too cumbersome. So this way, we'll be able to measure everything and expedite the process. So we're excited.
I think your recording and request words, your glossary, I think that's fantastic.
Yes, it just
For a
goes
layman,
for,
it just helps everyone to understand.
Exactly, for keywords, and you can give the suggestions and send it out.
So when you get a suggestion, the mayor needs to go. or something, repair the mayor or something like that, you know?
We don't have that part, but if you're telling me to do something,
No.
I do have a question. So I guess my newsletter, I thought we could do something even more generic. And when I made that request today for the potholes, it did just make it so that I could only ask about street situations. So is that, like, can I?
What if she has a whole list? Is that what you're saying? More?
Well, like if a citizen wanted to say when city council, there's not an option for that or other.
no, so it has the section that says contact. And,
Oh.
for example,
I'm trying to see what my,
it says right here on this example here, you can say contact forms, and then it'll send you an information or a URL to
okay.
go to a certain part of the.
I didn't quite understand that, so I was,
So if you wanna say hi, and then you get
Yep.
a response. And
okay,
then
so,
what's your next question?
okay, it says, hi, this is Lindon City. Do you find a contact information text contact?
Right.
Okay, so that's where that is?
Right, so you say contact, and then it'll give you some
Okay.
options.
Then it says to report an issue, then it lists,
Then you
this,
say streets,
okay.
water, sewer.
okay,
So we've had a question about, what's the best place to ask for, what's the age limit to teach swimming lessons? So that one didn't give him any response, but in the morning when we get there, we see the
Ones that weren't,
default, and then
Yeah.
we're actually able to respond, and we responded. That's why I wanted to show you my dashboard. And-
If you want me to log out, I can, and then you can log in.
but anyway, those that don't fit into a category or
Okay.
section,
Right, we were able
you have a
to-
chance to review those and then you assign them
so
or
Kathy,
come up
we
with an answer.
respond- we
I'll
respond
fix
to
that
same
tonight.
person says,
I'm gonna
contact
fix my newsletter
Alan
tonight.
at the swimming pool, this is his phone number.
So no request goes undone. Beautiful.
That's great. I'm gonna modify my newsletter to reflect that, give a little bit of an explanation, a few extra words. Thanks.
And then we'll catch those, and I think it's gonna be an education process to.
Yeah.
To get the.
And if they want to talk to the mayor at 2 in the morning, they can, right?
Anytime, I take calls 24/7. I may not be coherent, but I'll
No,
answer.
we don't give anybody some personal phone numbers and addresses and things like that, but,
I do.
I'm pretty sure that you already have a good,
I need to be approachable. I'm good about
I do
that, so,
give my cell phone to a lot of people
Yeah.
if needed, but,
That's great, Lon, thanks.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good job.
thank you, that's exciting.
That's gonna give you a good one.
Now, don't tell us how much it's costing, but it's a good, do we have a
It's not
budget
We
number?
were able to divide the entire, service between the four major, utilities, and it's, $700 per year, per utility. So
Oh
we're
my
about
God.
Can you imagine all the personnel time that saves?
We'll
They're
do
cheap.
cartwheels on that, that sounds great.
And I think, we'll get, this is a way to get the city on a fast track to get issues fixed faster, because right now, the way we do it is.
Oh, we have eyes and ears everywhere now.
Exactly, we'll
Yep.
have, that's why I told my guys, be ready to respond.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
No,
That was
yeah.
good news.
Got another
Great
item on
news.
the agenda too, so.
Yeah, I'll wait for
Wait.
the other items, see if you have,
Okay.
any questions.
Okay, let's open it up for open session for public comment. This is the time.
Just reissuing, do I have to go up there?
You can stay there, just state your name and address and
Oh,
for the
And
record.
really loud.
No, that's no problem there. Tammy AC, 1054 East 50 South, Lindon. Just visiting the issue of that white truck. So, my friend had to leave, so she just wanted to know, can we add her to that she was here supporting? Her name's Ann Stevens. So, I talked with Caroline, through email a little bit back in November, discussing a few ideas. What I decided I thought I would do was I would kind of log whether or not that truck was there. So I started to take a log, and I've got it here on my phone. Well, I gave up and finally decided that I would log when it wasn't there. 2 days since the middle of November. So, we're not getting correct information that's an abandoned vehicle in my opinion. If it's been there since the middle of, it's February 1st. And I've logged 2 days.
So it's not moving at all, or?
It's not moving at all. I would log as I left my neighborhood, and I'm in and out two times a day, and I'm still not doing carpool anymore. But my husband would log, I would log 2 days. It wasn't there, and I've got it. It was December, because Thanksgiving was late. It was the week after Thanksgiving. That truck was not there on Wednesday and Thursday, 12/3 and 12/4. It has not moved since then. The family that owns the truck lives in Orem, and I also was taking a log that there is space to park in his own driveway. I live in a cul-de-sac, in the end of a cul-de-sac with a very steep driveway. I have parking problems. We have parking issues. We have quads, we have boats, we have trailers. And whenever we have parking issues, mostly in the summer, we contact our neighbors, we talk to the mailman. My son was in the Philippines for 6 weeks one summer. I said, this car we will move, we'll do our best. But the second he gets home, he's back to Logan, the car will be gone. But it was a 6-week deal. This car's been there 6 weeks, at least, and has not moved. And there's, he just parks it there. The other thing is why doesn't he park it in front of his own dang house? Where there isn't impeding traffic, because there's no traffic issues on the one side of the road. So our neighborhood, I make 125 flyers for our ward when I pass out my Relief Society flyers. 125 people times 2 cars leaving twice a day for an abandoned vehicle.
So I have a question, if I may ask. What's our definition of an abandoned vehicle?
48 hours.
Is it 48 hours?
No,
72?
well, that's how long you can park on a public street without moving it. So
Without moving
If
it.
you moved
On
it
the public
6,
street without moving
if
it.
you
Yeah.
move it 6 inches every 48 hours, then
Then
they're
you're
in
fine,
compliance.
you can't, yeah.
So, the abandoned vehicle, we'd have to look it up, I don't know.
It has to be
But-
on a public street if it's there for 7 days. But again, if it's moved once, it's not.
The time starts over
So-
again.
Well, I don't know if, I know that some of my people, we have a Kirkland Estates, and I told people about council tonight. And I think there were maybe some calls made to the police station today, maybe reporting an abandoned vehicle, and then I told them to contact Carolyn. My husband and I decided to go for a bike ride, and as we left Kirkland Estates, we looked up, and there was a police officer up the way with his lights on, and we watched him turn around and come back down. That white truck had moved. First time since, what was it, the 4th, 5th of December? And it was in his driveway. When we came back, that officer went back down the street, and I don't know if it was you or not, but went back down the street. When we came back from our ride, another officer, and it's a female officer here, she was going up the street and back down. The car was, the truck. It's the first time it's moved since those dates. And I don't know if somebody contacted him this afternoon or not, if somebody stopped by the house. Because we made a little bit of a rumble today. So I don't know if somebody was gonna call, I think one of my neighbors said they were gonna call the police station and report it, and then some people.
Chief, maybe you can do a little bit more reconnaissance or information on it and then come back and report to the council, and then we can decide if there's something we need to do legislatively to change.
Well, and I had suggested the red curve.
Yeah.
It is just, and supposedly it is parked back there far enough, but like you were saying, Mayor, if it was you every day, and it's on a Google Doc, and it's on Google Maps, it's been years. This hasn't been, I'm kind of bugged since October. This is years. This is at least 2 years that this has been going on. It's time. I think we've been patient. He leaves, that's his parking spot.
But have you ever had a conversation with him personally? Or
I haven't.
Has anyone in the neighborhood had a conversation with him?
That came up today in our Kirkland Estates with the volatility of everything.
I understand. I'm just wondering if anyone's ever had a
No,
conversation.
But I wondered if anybody here had, because
Yeah.
Carolyn said somebody had, but there
So
again.
I looked up my emails, and so I had 2 officers that responded to me. It was the end of November, the 24th of November, and that was after you had come. And so you had come to our meeting then, and I had asked them, and so they both went out and looked at that. And one of those sergeants said that he was going to make contact with the individuals and ask them to move that. And so that's where we just need to follow up with that. And
Let's
see
follow
what
up and just see to what extent that occurred and what was the response, and then from that, come back and report to us, and then we can have that discussion, what the council feels comfortable in moving forward doing.
Well, and he moved it today, there's stains on the concrete, or on the asphalt. You can specifically see where that vehicle has been parked, the leaves, the debris. You can drive past it right now and you're like, oh, I know where he's been parked.
Well, thank you for your desire to at least address the issue to us, and
Well, it's not just for.
and it doesn't go on deaf ears. We understand what you're saying, and
It's more for my community, you
Yeah.
know, there's 125 of us-ish or so in
Yeah.
there, driving in and out, we've got young kids, I don't even know how the guy hasn't been slid into, it's a precarious spot.
yeah.
As you're coming down in a snowstorm and trying to turn in right, he's playing roulette right there,
Yeah.
but
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Okay, we'll expect to have follow-up, and then we can have that discussion, see what we feel is the right
Do
direction
you
to go.
want me to keep coming back and forth to these meetings, or should I just?
You're welcome anytime to come, and we encourage people to come and participate, and
I don't wanna waste your time, I want to, you know.
We
we're
like
here to serve
citizens
you.
here.
We're here to serve everyone in the community, so that's the mechanism by which we get information, the way we're able to have discussion and make hopefully good decisions, so.
Well,
Okay.
I got on the stick too late today to get some support down here, but it's not just me, there's, you know, and there's numerous people.
If it's one person, it's enough. We just need to make sure we have that discussion and make what decision we feel is appropriate.
Emails I've received have been from people beyond the 2
Yeah.
came today, and I can forward those and share them if needed, but.
Okay, chief,
Sounds like we're
you've got a task.
on it, so.
Thank you. Appreciate you, thank you. Anyone else here for open session? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next. It's consent agenda, and we don't have anything there, I don't think.
We
Yes,
do
we
have a
do.
Oh, you do, there it
resolution
is.
for surplus property.
How did we end up with some of those things?
I guess it depends on which one you're asking about. Just stuff, parks, this is all Parks and Rec stuff, so things from the aquatic center, the recreation stuff. I don't know where the cooler came from, so, the old mower,
Website is getting posted on now.
plus.com.
Mayor, I'm comfortable moving forward if everyone else is.
I think that would be appropriate.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Jake, a second by Randy, I think, is that right? Yeah, okay. Let's go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is a public hearing, so we need a motion to open a public hearing.
I'll make
Motion
that
to-
motion, Mayor.
Okay, we got a motion by Mike, a second by Carolyn. Is that good? Okay, call for the vote to open a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
We are now in a public hearing. All right. Adam, Juan, you gonna lead us on that one?
Yes, this is just coming back to.
Kind of a follow-up from what we discussed before, some time
Can you
ago.
turn on that mic, and, cause then the people on YouTube can hear you. Is it working? No.
Yeah, so this is just a follow-up to, it's working.
Is it green?
Mine died too.
You know what, we had a problem, it didn't get some of them plugged.
Okay.
He's good, he's got it.
So this is just coming back with the proposal to review the fees at the cemetery. The last time was just information workstation showing you what the figures are. So Adam, if you want to click the first So this is just the averages. If we look at the first two columns that says full lot, resident and non-resident, the amounts in orange are all the averages of all the fees by all those municipalities there listed. And the second line is just the average from our neighbors, Orem, Pleasant Grove, and American Fork. So where the average is $887, our burial plot is $700, but compared to our neighbors, we are about $550 less on that one. But on the non-resident, we're pretty close to the average of the entire valley here. If you click on the next square, so we have the price of the plot, but then we also have the price for internment. Now we go on a residential plot average for all the cities at $1,429, and our immediate neighbors is $1,843. Our charges right now are $1,100, so we're considerably lower than those. And if you go on to the non-resident plot and burial service, we're about $2,000.
Just a quick question. You have burial lots and then you have plot and interment.
So the plot is the burial lot,
That's what I
Right.
want to make sure.
and then we have the interment charge. So if we look at the last column where it says plot and interment, we are way below what our neighbors are. That's why we're getting so many more people from out of town to come and get buried in Lindon. Besides, we have a beautiful setting.
They couldn't live here, now they can be buried here, so maybe that's their, I don't know.
maybe that is their motivation.
Is there a state statute or something that tells how deep you have to put someone in?
I think there is from the healthcare department, we are guided to be below 4 feet to the top of the vault, yeah. So that's where we usually dig
I think my wife would choose to be as little as possible, whatever that minimum depth is, yeah.
Yeah, so we usually,
Ring the bell in case she wakes up.
I don't want a lot of dirt stopping her getting out of there, so.
so we usually dig, the depth that we dig is about 6.5
6.5
feet.
feet.
Deep. Correct.
And you got, what, about 2 feet with the
4 feet
vault?
of dirt, so
Yeah.
2 foot of the height of the vault. So the proposal here is to get us more in par of what the neighbors and everybody else is charging. So that will include, so that's what the average burial is within all the cities that we checked. That's for urns. Keep going, Adam. So our proposal will be to charge $1,300 for the plot, and for residents, give them the break of not charging them for the burial, for the interment. That will give us, the object is to get the prices of the plot at to be the same cost. Because what's happening is some residents are buying the plots at $700 and then giving them to a non-resident, and they get that $400 discount. Of course, we catch up when we charge for the burial, but we're still losing about $400 of money left out there. So if we get the prices to the $1,300, so there is no advantage to buy it if you're resident or non-resident, I think that'll level the playing field and discourage some of that.
I had one question as I was looking at that. This is what we currently are now,
Right,
and this is our proposal.
right. So
Did it not change then for a non-resident?
for a non-resident, it did not change at this point.
It changes what they pay up front to buy the plot.
See, so if you look at the non-resident on the full lot, they're paying the $1,300, and then we charge them the $700 for internment.
Right, so the total though just stays where you.
Right, so where we can choose to charge more for a non-resident will be on the internment side, which if you see the average for all the cities is $865, and we're charging $700. So maybe on the next budget fee schedule, we can say, okay, let's now bring that charge for non-residents from $700 to, let's say, $900 to go back to to match what the non-resident is in another city.
So it fixes what we need to fix.
Right, it fixes the immediate problem, that is to get the same price for non-resident and resident lot area price.
Paul and I spoke about this a month or two back. You know, I first had some reservations, thinking, hey, we want to give some priority to our residents, but as we talk through it, I think I'm in favor. I think it gets us out of a lot of these uncomfortable situations where your neighbor or your whoever's saying they're a resident buying. I think it puts us in a more comfortable position, and makes it so there's wrong people to put in the cemetery, but that we're not just getting people because we're the low-cost leader, so.
We're also at 67% full, not quite full, but sold. And we just want to extend that as long as we can and then save the space for. In the next couple of years, we'll probably start, probably next year, I'll start planning the next phase, see what's gonna cost, what kind of designs we're gonna get for maybe.
One of the factors, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Denise ran numbers for the last 2 years, and 25% were from Vineyard?
That sounds about correct.
Vineyard, I called their city manager, they have no plans for a cemetery. And so there's 30 or 35,000 people that build out over there, and they're gonna be burying here or in Orem, I mean, realistically. And so, just something to keep in mind, that as we look at these fees, is how to accommodate non-residents.
The sheriff's department's their police department, and ours is their cemetery. They just use everyone
They're staying town, right?
So, so someone who buys a lot, who's a Lindon resident, and sells it to someone from Vineyard to be buried in Lindon, do we stop that? Have we stopped that by doing this? We really haven't.
There is an internal procedure that they can actually, I own the plot, but I'm gonna give you permission to be buried in my.
So we still allow them to do that?
Yeah, there is a legal document that allows that. Our ordinance allows it.
So the only way we recoup any cost would be
On the burial.
on the burial? Okay.
So as part of this ordinance tonight, we are tweaking the definition of a residence, and part of this concern came up in a situation about a year ago where we had somebody who was at a primary care facility but had been a long-term Lindon resident, so we crafted something that we think will work.
Yeah,
Until it doesn't. So,
Yeah, I know, I mean, I could see if I lived here for 50 years and, I don't know, there's something there that just feels, man, I put 50 years in here. I went to a care center and now I can't be, I'm gonna, I don't know, and I don't know how we craft that. I don't know how we deal with that. It just feels like we ought to try to do something.
I think this is a good step in
I think this is as good a shot as any.
Yeah.
I think there are some people who will find a loophole in this, but I don't know that we'll see a whole lot of those.
Yeah.
But it's easier to enforce the part of the burial,
Yeah.
the time of death, than when you buy the plots.
Yeah, we want to take that challenge away from the people that have to actually implement this, because at that point in time, when you're dealing with those issues, it's not a nice time to
Now
push
it's a-
either way.
Now, it's a big increase to residents to go from the $1,100 total for the plot and the burial. But I think that we haven't had an increase for a long time, but it also, we can allow that $200 to go for maybe 2 years before we consider charging residents for the interment. So if that,
So, I don't know if you have lots, but I don't know when this goes into effect. If you want to be buried in Lindon, you better jump on it.
Got it for our anniversary present this last year. So next year's, I think 9 is headstone, so.
So it's diamonds, it's
Yeah.
Lindens, and
Yes, it's plots and headstones.
I maybe didn't read that part.
I know,
Well, it taught me a subscription to National
That's pretty
Geographic.
romantic.
yeah. Hey, we want to make sure we know where we're at, right? We don't want our kids messing it up on us or something.
So
I've, go ahead.
If we approve this tonight, then we're too late to go ahead and buy.
Well, do we need to go to a public hearing? Don't we have to?
We're in a
This is it.
I guess, do we have to do that just once, or do we have to multiple ones, or? This is it.
That- So if
we
you,
pass it tonight, then the new fees are in effect.
yep. I have a couple questions. I have to confess, though, I have a odd hobby. It's a morbid one, and I have for decades read the obituaries religiously. And it is interesting, having been on city council now for a few years, that I always notice when people are buried in the Lindon Cemetery that have no, you know, it used to be before COVID, you could see if they were having something at the ward house, or you could kind of tell, you know, what area of Lindon they were from. And you can tell the ones that are shopping for an inexpensive plot to be in. And I know that Don expressed this to us, Don Peterson, years ago, and we've looked at it once, and it's nice to be looking at it again. So thank you for all your hard work on this. I do have a couple questions, and I guess so. Okay, so let me phrase this right. One of my questions is, I saw the definition for a double grave. Do we have a definition as to whether or not we allow them?
We do not allow them anymore. It's in our ordinance that does not allow for double burial.
Not in this particular portion of the ordinance then? Because it sits what our ordinance is, but I didn't see that we don't allow them. Am I not reading it correctly?
This ordinance only has those sections, so definitions and then this other section.
Okay, so it is someplace else?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure that.
And as I recall, we'll have to look at this one, I think when we prohibited, it's any new double depths.
Right.
Because some
Right.
people had purchased a double depth
Okay,
plot.
We are honoring that.
okay,
So we still honor those that paid for it, but we won't do any new ones.
I understand.
Just for the safety issue
Meaning
of
and double
digging
dipping.
so deep and having collapsible walls.
Sure. Also, for the residents that have prepaid, so they come in as a resident, they purchase it. How then do the city recoup it if they've moved to North Carolina and then come back and want to be buried here? And they've been gone 5-10 years, but they paid the resident rate. How do we get some additional monies back?
So on the actual purchase certificate,
Okay,
we say when it got purchased,
mm-hmm,
at what price they purchased.
okay,
So on that will be a retroactive fee, that if we decide to go to no fee for the $1,300, we're gonna charge the $400 for those plots and back.
okay,
That's the idea, not to say, I have my burial plot that I bought in 1999,
okay,
and I paid $400 for it. Now, because I'm a non-resident, I'm a resident, I'm not gonna pay the current fee. So that's one that we have to just say, we're gonna charge you for the last known interment fee.
And then for those who,
We're talking about internment.
Interment.
correct,
Yeah.
intern-
So the plot stays the same.
Yeah.
We don't back charge them for.
no, for the increase on that. So, but,
That's what I was, it
No,
sounded like we were going.
and I guess I
there.
didn't phrase it right. I appreciate the answer, but I don't think I phrased it right.
That issue comes of timing of the internment.
Right,
I don't
Yes.
believe we allow prepayment on internment.
no, we don't. But if
Is
the-
this not prepayment of internment on our $1,300 price?
No, that's
No.
just the plot.
It's just a plot, but at the time of burial,
We don't charge them.
let's say that I bought the lot today,
So it's not a prepaid, it's not considered a prepaid internment.
no, it's just at the time, whatever the current fee is.
So if 3 years from now, we decide we have to charge an interment fee for residents, that's what they'll have to pay.
Right.
Just the, whatever, it's $50 or $200 or whatever that is.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
So it's not prepaid, it's just, right now it's $0.
Okay.
It's free pay.
And I guess I didn't understand that, so
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I'm glad we clarified that.
And I'm wondering if, is it something, everybody else understand that? That it was not a prepaid, I mean, did anybody else have that question? Because I want to make sure citizens don't come in, especially at that time, thinking that I've prepaid this.
Yeah, so on the fee schedule, when we rewrite it, right now it says resident pays $0. But in 2 years from now, if our fee schedule now says $100, that's what the
If
fee.
you don't wanna pay an interment and you're a resident, you need to die within the next 2 years.
Okay.
After that, we may alter
Perfect.
that fee,
Okay.
but, you know, that'll be determined by us.
I will
That
pay-
answers all my other
I will
questions
pay
then.
$100 not to die for a long time.
I think life is more important than maybe the $100 or $200, but,
Oh, it's just, it's the loved ones after that are gonna
yeah.
squirm about that one. So, thank you very much.
We good? Other questions? Council? Van, Mike,
Motion to get out of the
Jake?
public hearing if we're ready.
Randy, Carolyn? Okay.
I'll second Mike's motion.
There's a motion by Mike, second by Jake.
To close the public hearing?
Close
Yeah,
the
that's what my
public
motion
hearing.
is, is to close the public hearing.
That's what we're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, we're out. Now you can take action if you feel comfortable with the explanations.
I've got it here. I'll move to approve ordinance 2021-1-0, updating portions of the LCC 8.32 cemeteries and burials and amending the fiscal year 2021 fee schedule as presented.
That's a mouth.
We have a motion and a second by Van. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. I know you're still gonna have questions,
Right.
but hopefully this gives you the opportunity to step them through that and hopefully
That's my
get on a better place, so. All right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Mike's check's in the mail, so keep him on the old fees.
Yeah, wow, even the cost of dime's gone up. Honey, I'm sorry, we can't go to Hawaii, it's gonna cost us.
I waited one item to challenge. One.
Okay, here's, our last agenda item is to discuss short-term rentals. Did you get a call from the church today?
What's that?
Did you get a call from the?
I did.
Yeah,
Yep.
I had a long conversation with him as well, so.
Yeah, I was talking to him, he's like, oh, Mayor Acerson's trying to call me.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Juan.
See you, Juan.
I'm out of.
Just wanted to get them submitted so we can know what we're dealing with.
Next Tuesday.
What were they?
I wanna see what it looks like.
Whatever they've been testing, are they just testing soils?
Yeah, they're just doing soil analysis. Okay, Mike, it's all
Okay,
yours, we're
okay.
yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. Back in October, we started to discuss short-term rentals. We had some conversations. At that time, I said we had said, let's look at a general ordinance, but come back with some discussion points. So that's what I've done tonight, see what, kind of what direction you'd like to go on this. If that's something you're still thinking about.
Yeah, just for the record, I just finished a short-term rental, but it was deficit on my part. I had my daughter and son-in-law, they were there for 2.5 months, and they didn't pay anything, just good smiles and hugs. It was
So
good.
It was a nonprofit, it wasn't intended to be that way, it just was a nonprofit.
Do we have questions? I mean, I didn't, I'm just trying to make light a little bit here, so.
So, you know, if you want to put an ordinance together, I put 9 bullet points or discussion points together if we wanted to discuss those and, see what direction you would like to go on this.
Council?
To have a discussion on this,
Yeah,
for sure.
let's do it.
Okay.
That's me.
As I went through a lot of short-term rental ordinances, I just picked out some general guidelines or general points that I thought, we could discuss. The first one, area, you know, only one designated short-term rental is allowed per property, you know, and so.
You mean we can't do a hotel or something like that?
Multiple units.
Well, it may be obvious, but I just have a question when you say only one designated short-term rental. So you could rent out multiple rooms for within the allowed period of time, or you could rent out one room. Is that what
think
we're
it's
saying?
So I
One client, or
So
what
I
if you
put
have
under-
multiple
Yeah,
clients?
So under maximum occupancy, letter B,
Well, 8 to 10.
I put I put the property shall not be rented to more than one renter at any given time, and the owner shall not divide or rent out portions of the dwelling to multiple renters at the same time.
So that pretty much covers that.
So that makes it so you can't rent a boarding house.
Right.
Okay, but you could order you could rent the entire place
To one client.
to one client, and then they would be limited by the either 8 to 10 or the 4 unrelated individuals,
If that's what you'd like.
if that's what we decide.
Like Springville just passed their ordinance, and they were requiring the owner be on site all the time except for 90 days for the year. And then they do have a 3-year exception, the mission president exception, so.
Wow. They
so
carved that one out, huh?
Most cities have the 3-year exception, so.
Are, right, culturally. What if someone wanted to do an exchange with another family? Basically, I'd like to go to Hawaii, and so I wouldn't be on site. I would be limited to 90 days that I wouldn't be on site.
So I did not put any of that in our ordinance,
I'm just-
sorry, in these
I can
documents.
see that, people,
A swap?
yeah, a swap. I'm not,
But then we get into the issue, is it really a commercial rental, like a Airbnb or a Verb
I
or
just-
something? I mean, if it's just between,
Yeah, there's some platforms like housesitters.com and some swap where there's not actually a financial transaction.
yeah, it's just an exchange.
So I imagined what you were covering, Mike, was where there's a revenue generation of some kind is what we're looking at.
Okay,
We could muddy the waters with a lot of other
yeah.
types, I guess.
that's what I'd like to avoid if we can.
So I could do that then, right?
Sounds like it.
Okay, we won't muddy the water.
Just don't use your daughter.
On number 1B, and I don't know how you feel about this, if a property owner with an approved accessory apartment may use the accessory apartment as a short-term rental. As I kind of just did a quick audit, it seemed like 9 of the 12 we had off on Airbnb were using accessory apartments. That does get into, our affordable housing numbers, that we're trying to hit, where those accessory apartments would be used more for an Airbnb than to promote affordable rentals. But I don't know how you feel about that. If you're still, if you're okay with an accessory apartment being used as an Airbnb or short-term rental, I shouldn't say Airbnb.
I think that's one of the most appropriate uses because they already have met regulations with the city. It's been registered. They're meeting the off-site parking. They've, got all that to know that they're gonna be, understanding the accessory apartment ordinance. And also, one of the people who does very active short-term rentals pointed out to me that a lot of those that come, sometimes they're staying for a month, 2 months. It's a family that's in between building a house. It's not always just vacationers.
Yeah.
So she felt she was still somewhat meeting the need of affordable housing for people.
And under the state definition, they have to be less than 30 days to be considered a short-term rental. So if it's more than 30 days, then you're a long-term rental.
So they do 30 days, they move out a day, come back the next, can you do multiples of 30 days?
I mean, depends how you want to write this.
No, but I mean-
I didn't get into that specific, so. This is just very general. I took sections from different city codes that were general in nature for the most part.
You raise a great concern there. If the state's counting that as, affordable housing, and then it does this, and maybe under their now rules, it doesn't count, that would be something to be aware of. But if they continue to count it, then to me, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I think they'd still probably, we really don't get into that level of detail. We just, when we say this is how many we've issued building permits for, this is how many we have.
In the research that I've done, Mike, and I'm sure you have as well, really the cities that this starts to be an issue where they feel like they need to possibly limit the short-term rental designation is where they start to lose workforce housing. You're talking about cities like Moab, where they have, tremendous tourism, and then the people that need to serve the tourists in restaurants and in
Can't find a
different
place.
facilities, they can't find a place to live. Park City to some degree. So I think when this was brought up before, we thought, well, if we have 20-ish right now, because not be
Yeah.
a handful more than that. Are we really coming to a concentration that's a concern yet? So.
I'm thinking out loud and, which is dangerous. But is there issues where, whether it's a legal or illegal accessory apartment situation, where a homeowner has perhaps not living in the home and then is renting out that Airbnb? Perhaps he's renting them out in two separate entities, whether as an accessory apartment or as an Airbnb, without it being owner occupied, but it is occupied by long-term rentals. Is that something we need to be concerned about, or?
That essentially becomes a duplex.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, under our ordinance, if you have an accessory apartment, you're supposed to live there,
mm-hmm.
as well. I mean, maybe that's a point where you do say there is an owner occupancy requirement if you have an accessory apartment that you want to do Airbnb or short-term rental with,
And I know we have some that are actual business model, so, I mean, are we looking at two different lanes, two different animals? Or are we just going to say that it has to be owner occupied, a portion of the dwelling? I'm just, you know how, yeah, these are just thoughts that come to my mind as we talk about this.
yeah, well, that's a good point. If you have some direction on that.
I mean, there's a few of these listed right now where they rent the whole house.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm a little
Yeah.
bit confused. How can you have owner occupancy in a short-term rental?
And that's the conundrum, yeah. That's what I'm saying, that we've got some, I don't know, if it's got an accessory, if a home has an accessory apartment and a house, then we write the ordinance differently, that they can't be, I don't,
So you're not renting it as a
Hearing you say-
duplex.
yes,
I
uh-huh.
think where the very first point Mike has, 1A, only one designated short-term rental allowed. And then if they have a long-term renter, because maybe they're doing an ecclesiastical assignment or whatever, I wouldn't have an issue with that. I think that would take care of.
I'm just trying to think of the things I don't think about.
Versus a short-term renter are two very different situations and animals.
Okay.
Well, the hard part with that though is it may conflict with our accessory apartment ordinance because that requires owner occupancy. And so if somebody is
See, that's something,
I'm thinking if somebody's renting out the upstairs and they have an accessory apartment that they want to rent out as an Airbnb, I think that would violate our current ordinance because there's no owner occupant.
What if it was so how about, because I do know of one situation, an ecclesiastical assignment, but there's direct family members occupying, they're not technically the owners
You know,
on the
their
deed of the
siblings or
property,
children
but
or
it's
whatever.
children who are
Yeah.
taking care of the home.
it's kind of by assignment kind of a thing.
I don't know if we say
Direct
owner
relative or
occupied
something.
or immediate family member, I don't know if that gives us the wiggle room to accommodate that.
I'd feel better about that if the owner of record gave permission or written permission or whatever it might be that direct family members could.
I recall there's some allowance for family in that.
Has to be, yeah.
In that definition, but
On accessory apartments?
well, just on
Or-
owner occupied.
Just on the owner occupied.
Qualify for owner.
We'll look into that one.
Yeah,
But certainly completely unrelated,
Mhm.
like what Randy said, basically that's becoming a duplex
Yeah.
when we've specifically been trying to eliminate duplex.
I'm just trying to think outside of
If I remember right, like
this.
the cities that have that 3-year exception, I think you come in and you ask for a waiver for those 3 years. Or, or you let the city know, hey, I'm not gonna be here I'm renting it, or, there's some type of exception they give for a waiver for 3 years. But,
let's say the owner's, ends up having dementia, has to be put into a
Care
secured
facility.
area. And maybe it's not his children, but it's somebody that occupies the upstairs and rent, I don't know.
Maybe we
it's-
say power of attorney, someone with
yeah,
power of
some
attorney.
legal document that allows someone, I'm just thinking outside the box. Not, I know hopefully we won't have an event yet, but.
You know,
I'll just
I
sell the
think,
house. Just sell the house, just sell it.
Can I ask Brian, is there some sort of a legal name for something that it would be short of a power of attorney, some sort of document of authority for them to be there? Is there
There's a guardianship and a conservatorship that are put into place in situations like that.
but even in an ecclesiastical situation, maybe there's not a health situation done.
I mean, some legal form that at least isn't just, a little bit more legitimate, I don't know.
okay. Real quick on parking, this basically requires the parking to be on the premises. They can't count the parking off the street. The parking's gotta be on the same lot. The number of vehicles allowed by the occupants of a short-term rental shall be restricted to the number of off-street parking spaces provided by the owner. So the owner's got 5 stalls or 5 parking spaces. They need to let their, tenants or customers know they can't have 10 cars. They've got room for 5. Any questions on parking? Okay. Maximum occupancy, a lot of cities limit it between 8 and 10 residents or customers to be at the short-term rental. I don't know if you want to set a number like that.
I have a question on that. I don't know, do somehow we want to take into account the square footage of a home, then with a cap on that? Because, I'd hate to cram a bunch of people into an accessory apartment that is not designed for that. It's like a hotel room is meant for, X amount of people. Yes, they're,
You didn't grow up in my house. When I was a
mine
kid, man,
either.
we stuffed them in there
I was gonna say.
everywhere.
Well, let me give you a case in point. We did an Airbnb down in St. George, and we were keenly aware of, what's that?
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. We should have invited you, apparently. We were keenly aware of how many we were allowed to have to sleep there. Okay, so we're talking about sleeping, because we had the son and daughter-in-law and the grandkids in St. George, which were 7, plus the dog. And then we had some others who came to visit during the night. We played games, we watched movies and so forth.
be a sleep situation.
Okay, but that's not what that says.
No, this was language out of many ordinances.
Yeah, you see where I'm coming from.
Well, occupancy would be that your suitcases and your bodies are there. I mean, not if you're visiting and having an extra large dinner.
I mean,
Would it? Is that like the fire marshal, so many people capacity in a room?
But see, that's been my,
No sleeping bags. In other words, you can't roll them out on the floor and.
but that's been my concern.
That's gonna be.
Yeah,
No,
that's what I say, that's been my concern.
I'm not
from
saying
the beginning.
enforcing, I'm saying we're not gonna go in there and see what's happening.
Guidelines,
Well,
some
Yeah,
sort of
if
recommendation.
people just, it's,
We get so
This
far in
happens all the
weeds,
time in life.
we'll never be able to enforce this, and it'll just be another system that someone's got to manage. I see where you're coming from, but when we start talking about based on square footage, you can only have this many people. Well, I mean, who's going to be the square footage monitor?
we can put it back on the owner.
or how many bedrooms, I mean,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, I was just trying to quantify a size.
No, your point's a good one.
What is the purpose of regulating how many people can be in a single-family house?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
I think it was to try and limit the number of homes that are being rented for party homes, like the one across the street from Wadley Farms. They were parked, Alan sent me pictures of, 20 cars parked on the lawn and out in front of the home. And so it was trying to limit it from being turning into a reception center or an event center or something like that.
I guess,
It says 20, I just pulled that one up. It
Yeah.
says
and for me, it's,
So vehicles would be the defining issue.
I think that's where you address it.
That's
Okay.
Good
well,
point.
I just feel like you say, a party house. So if we have a limit, it's not that we're going to enforce it, but then we can use it as a mechanism to, if the police have to show up, that they can say, you have exceeded the amount, and by that, it's a avenue in order to hold them accountability. That's the only time you would ever use it. I mean, the honest people who are sticking an extra, couple sleeping bags, that's not a concern, but it is those ones of trying to, it's trying to stay ahead of the curb of these ones who,
The intent is if it really comes a party house and things are going on
we have something
in a
to
big way,
enforce it.
there's a way to get in there and clean it up, or at least address it.
That's my point of view on that.
Well, I haven't seen that one.
If you're allowing 5 cars and 5 families show up, you're gonna have more than 8 or 10 people.
Yeah, I was gonna make that point.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know about a number as being is how many bedrooms are available and I don't know.
I know
That's what
on
I'm
our
saying.
houseboat, man, we stuff people on that thing.
I know, how many does it hold? 12? How many you sleep?
I mean,
30?
you could,
Want it to be reasonable so that if we do have to use that as a reason, we can say, you've exceeded that. We don't want you to be here. They're causing a problem if there's a reason we've shown up with the authorities.
There's no legal requirement that says you can only have so many people in a single-family residence.
No, but this is not, you're not making money off of a single-family residence. This is something that now has public safety involved.
I like the comment that Councilman Packard made when they were writing Springville's ordinance, that someone brought up complaints, because they have a massive home there that has, can, I can't remember how many people it fits, but basically, what did he say? I don't know, he just said, to me, it's a business, that's not, typically permitted in the single-family dwelling zone. That's the issue that I have, that's running a business in residential zones, so.
I like that, 2A, if we're going to limit the parking, they have to have on-site parking and they're not clogging up the street. And
Yeah.
I think that kind of self-regulates it right there.
I mean, if we see an issue,
Someone comes and has, 5 or 6 little kids that are just gonna be, I mean, there you could go over the limit of bodies really fast.
Sure.
And so-
And typically, those aren't going to be the ones that are causing the problems, but, the younger generation, but,
Think about what bothers people, it's
Sure.
traffic, cars.
And the noise.
and the
But again,
noise.
are we talking overnight parking? Because it's conceivable that someone could come visit, like my son and his daughter-in-law and their 5 kids, and park their van on the street for 5 hours while they're there playing games and we're having a barbecue or something like that, but they don't tend to spend the night there.
But to that point, perhaps, and I'm just, again, shooting from the hip, thinking out loud, if you were visiting, if somebody was visiting and you lived in maybe a PUD or something like that, and there's no off-street parking, you have to only have parking in such, certain places, parking can be a problem, so perhaps it needs to be parking on site. I don't know, but, if you're parking in some areas, it's gonna cause a problem, so.
Well, I don't think that we can prohibit people from parking on the
No,
street
you
legally,
couldn't.
though,
No,
if they're not residing there. That's just my thought, but
It just depends whether it becomes a nuisance and a public safety issue, and do we have the guidelines in our ordinance now that we can address that if that were to occur? Or do we need to firm this up more? I mean, parking is one area where I think we can kind of put some guidelines in there. I'm not even aware of this party animal that's across from Wadley Farms.
I wrote them a notice back in, it was probably September, and I haven't had any complaints since. So they live in Virginia, they've rented out and for parties and things, so. Yeah,
If it's the house I'm thinking of, it doesn't really look like a party house to me.
No,
if it's the
that
one I'm
night
thinking.
that night they had a wedding reception there as well, and so people from Wadley Farms that were parking on the street were going there, figuring they were at the wrong wedding, and then having to go. Alan was out there directing traffic, he said, so.
Sounds like, is that a one-time event?
I haven't had any more complaints, so.
Keep talking.
Okay.
Anything else?
So let's axe the 8 to 10 for right now. If we see if there's an issue, we'll deal with it later, just worry about parking.
I think parking's a good,
Okay.
are we okay with that?
To Mike's point, the overnight, I think is.
Okay,
Yeah,
I wrote that
that's-
note
I
down.
think that's the key, because if they have the right to park on street, but it does go back to how many are gonna spend the night, like you said, you know, they're gonna put a suitcase out, or they're gonna put a bag. But I'm with, I don't know who said it, Adam, 8 to 10, I mean, that could be very limiting.
Yeah, that was pretty consistent in a lot of ordinances, but again, those we're dealing with, you know, the main cities regulating are Sandy, Moab, Riverton. Those seem like the most stringent ordinances, so.
Well, I suppose it goes both ways. You could get, you know, you could, if we don't say anything, you could technically say, yeah, we can put 40 in there. But by the same token, who's gonna go in there and check to see if there's more than 10? You know, what if there's 11? What if there's 13? Or what if there's, that's my, I'm not necessarily against trying to, you know, for public safety purposes, but what I am struggling with is just setting a number, because in reality, that it takes a whole segment of the population out that might want to do something that is legal, and that is rent an Airbnb.
I can just see our police chief getting a call. I just counted, there's 11 in there now. Go get them.
Well, and I think when the preliminary conversations we've had about this have been, this is not some widespread problem.
Yeah, I think
Right,
it's-
that's,
We want to keep it somewhat loose, and we can always tweak it later.
Yeah.
I want to be, to Mike's point.
Amen,
We don't
Carolyn.
need to have a bunch of rules and regulations and overreaction to this
Okay.
yet. I mean,
Unless it's
how
needed.
tightly do we want to
Unless it's
squeeze the
needed.
orange just when we just have this little bit of juice?
and there may come a time
Yes.
when it is needed. And I'm all for that. I have no issues with that whatsoever.
There is only about a dozen rentals that
Yeah.
I've seen on, and I've looked at 3 or 4 different sites, and a lot of them advertise on all of those sites. And so, but out of those, there's maybe 3 or 4 that are the entire house. And so we've got over 3,000 residential units in town. And so we're really, we're writing an ordinance in search of a problem a little bit here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
I'm trying to look at this as a proactive approach. Because unless there's one in your neighborhood, then it's not as bothersome.
So would you like a limit of persons then?
I have 3 in my neighborhood, and they are all extremely responsive.
Are they whole houses?
Some,
Okay.
and it's like you don't even notice it. They're very conscientious, good operators.
It was
Are
funny,
they owner occupied?
in my neighborhood, one of my really good friends, they went to Hawaii for months, so they rented their house out to a construction company. And so it freaked out every mom in the neighborhood, you know, it was kind of, you know, because they were out there smoking and drinking on the porch every night, and it freaked them out, you know, and so, yeah, it was interesting, so.
Sure.
The next one, responsible party, this is having a responsible property or management company that we can get a hold of, that they need to identify.
Someone needs to be designated as a point of contact, so if an issue does come up,
Yeah,
they're accessible.
yep,
I agree, 100%.
okay. Licensing, are you interested in allowing or requiring a license, to at least process the application, that then we have some contact? That's, you know, it can be just like our, you know, commercial business licenses or home occupation, it's $40 for the processing fee. It's if you look, most cities who do have ordinances for short-term rentals do require some type of license.
And they charge for it.
They charge,
Some
most
of them are quite large.
Pretty nominal though, isn't it, like $40?
50, Lehigh's 50, they're the lowest,
That's just one time up front?
once a year.
Like a business license.
Yeah, Cottonwood Heights is the most at $350.
Would it be something that you would charge more for a whole house, you know, somebody who runs it as a business versus, I mean, could you have a,
Most cities seem to only Sandy's the only one that's different. If you have gross receipts,
right, I saw that one. I'm just saying that we've got some who just rent them out on a small, more hospitality version, and some that just rent it out bringing in big groups of people in it. So to me, those are the more impactful on our city as far as need for police or oversight from time to time versus the other ones. So.
I thought about this, the idea of licensing, I think I'm in favor of, just so that we have a mechanism if they are
Of record.
continually breaking the rules. Because otherwise, I think it becomes a little more difficult.
At least we've got a database of,
And we know,
yeah,
Orem right now has a $50 annual fee for any rental of any kind, that you owners have to pay. And you have to re-register every year and update, your contact information, not just short-term, but all renting. And so does, also St. George does as well.
I don't know that I'm ready to go that far.
Yeah.
But those are cities where they realized there was a lot.
I would opt for less,
Yes.
so we have compliance,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
get that contact information,
that would be the entire point for me, is just that.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a lot.
Yeah, my question too for council and staff is, what have people already paid for an accessory apartment? Do we need to have a fee on top of all the hoops they already jumped through to have a qualified accessory?
Because
Could
it's
they just-
income.
Could they just have a registration at no charge when they've already paid impact fees or whatever fees we have at this time?
But I think it's different. Yeah. Is it different, though?
It's been changing, yes. We've changed some things.
It's totally up to you.
I think just the only change you're going from a long, a rental to a business is maybe that's why we would,
Long-term rental, you still have to, you're earning income
yeah.
as well.
Well, I think clearly, we're not looking at this as a source of any significant income.
More of a
Not for the
registered.
city.
I tend to agree that, even if it's nominal, it's just an opportunity for us to be able to track and keep track if there are events. I don't know that we want to get too hung up on.
I think compliance is gonna be directly associated with what we charge.
That's right. I agree too.
My question would be, the accessory apartment, legal accessory apartments have already gone through a process to qualify and meet stipulations and pay fees. Maybe we consider not charging them just because they're gonna be long-term versus short-term. They can still register that use if we wish.
If
For
they're,
those that have not
Yeah.
done an accessory apartment, perhaps that has a fee.
that they're not a registered, if you can prove that you are a registered,
Except, 'cause the
Like,
accessory
apa-
apartment I already get a letter every year from my accessory apartment from the city and respond to that and.
well, because we don't have that many that are registered.
Yeah,
So
that's
that would,
just for utilities, I think. We don't send out.
We
Let-
can come up with some ideas.
I think it goes back to the tracking. Do you want, that's,
The city knows I have an accessory apartment, and they ask, am I renting it to family or non, are we
Oh.
asking that question anymore now that we eliminated the double utility billing?
we don't send anything out
But
that I
I'm saying
know of.
those people are have already paid significant funds to
Yeah.
register and be with the city. It's just another question to ask, but I'm just saying monetarily, do they need to be charged again?
well, that can be a perk for those who are illegal,
Exactly.
a perk for the legal ones, but then those who are not legal.
But I don't see how you track, you
I don't-
require for one and track it, but don't track another one. I mean, it goes, it helps staff and to know, okay, how many do we have?
Perhaps
It gives us, if it is a bad actor, we can revoke that that business license.
I agree, yeah.
I think it raises a question too, though. Are we going to allow overnight rentals in an illegal basement apartment?
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't if they said a business license, if they got a business license, regardless of the cost, would that not have some kind of requirement that it be illegal?
I mean, we would probably, if they're gonna tell us they're gonna rent that out, then we would probably check. If they applied for business license, we'd check that it's a legal
Accessory apartment.
accessory
Accessory,
apartment.
Well, that's a tricky question.
Yes, it
because
does.
You could rent a room next to your you could rent out your
I was gonna
master
say,
bedroom.
just rent a room in your
It's
basement.
not part of the accessory.
Uh-huh. If you just call it you're renting out a bedroom or a wing of your home versus I'm not calling it an accessory apartment. I don't think there's any right or wrong answers. We're just talking out loud, right?
I guess, just going down to number 8, having a business license also helps the city know if we're collecting our transient room tax. We can look at that. You know, I guess that is where we are getting some
Right there, it kinda
income
limits,
from,
maybe if people
as a
understand they
city.
have to pay that transient
So,
tax. If they're
over the
not
last
through an
couple of
Airbnb
years,
or
we've
something.
collected between $800 and $1,200. I think it was,
Wow.
so.
Don't spend it all in one place, Mayor.
Okay, another topic of just shooting from the hip here. So if that transient tax is captured through the site that they're typically registered for, right? And that does offer an opportunity for some sort of tracking, I'm guessing, but for those individuals who just want to do it like on a KSL or Craigslist kind of situation, just throwing that out. What's your thoughts on, I mean, is that going to help us, hurt us by asking for them to then file those taxes, which, I don't know. Again, I'm just brainstorming here, just thinking.
I mean, it really becomes more like a hotel, or, you know, if you're tracking it to that degree, they're operating as a business, they're really, it's not just an occasional rental, it's, their whole purpose is to
Capture
receive-
revenue.
Capture revenue, and
Right.
I think for the most part, I'm not aware, I mean, I gotta ask around, are there a lot of them existing right now that are actually renting rooms
And those I'm really not concerned
I'm just
about.
wondering.
Me personally, I don't know how that works, if we can do an ordinance. The ones that I'm really concerned about are the ones that rent a whole house as a business, and that there's not somebody in charge of that. That's really, that's the driving force for me to understand that we as a city can regulate those who are operating a business in a residential zone. I mean, you know, all the rest is just minutia. Those are where my biggest concerns
How
are.
do we identify those individuals that are doing that? Because we offer it as a business license, if they don't come in and do it, they can still do it, and it's a complaint basis, too much traffic, too many cars. At that point, that's when we enact, we say, well, your function is a business, you need to register with the city, and this is the framework, whatever framework we determine that to be.
And that's where I'm most comfortable is, you know, if this were a great big problem, I'd say we need to think about it. I love talking about it. That's the part that means the most, is that we're communicating about this and thinking about making sure that our neighborhoods are safe. Because what I have is one in my neighborhood that causes concern. And people that come in, you don't know who they are, and it's running as a business, not somebody who's being offering this as a portion of their home. They're overseeing it, and whether they're there all the time, that's not
You don't have security other than our police force, and
right.
they're not aware of these rental places, and so.
Those are the ones I'm highly concerned about. The rest, you know.
It'll be a complaint based, because I don't think I can go on Airbnb's website and
Yeah, we're not too.
That's right,
I can
that's
go
right.
there and look, and, you know, but they have their free speech right to post anything, you know, that's what the state law was based off of. But, yeah, as far as like going in and requiring them to now get a business license off this website, no, we can't.
Let's define what that process would be, so as the complaints do come in, we can approach them and say, this is what you legally need to do to function as a business.
Point of clarification, I'm assuming there's something short of an ordinance that we could do that incorporates some of these. I personally believe some of these go a little bit too far. They set up a system that likely will not be enforced, which ends up being not a good thing. Short of an ordinance, are there a policy, a procedure?
Or a definition, perhaps?
Or, yeah.
I mean, because what makes me think about a definition, like what you're saying, Mike, is that if we say, if you operate this type of a business, if you operate this way, your home, I don't know, if you operate this way, you've now done it in such a way that you are a business. you don't live there, if the owners are an LLC, with the intent of, I don't know, but there can be a definition, so it's just those that we are trying to capture.
Well, one more comment. I don't know that I'm deathly opposed to an ordinance. But if it had to be an ordinance, I certainly would be in favor of a very stripped down ordinance, one that addresses some of the concerns that we all agree on, if that's possible.
So you're getting a lot of discussion. Are you getting anything that you can?
Yeah, I mean, there's things that's why I brought these discussions
Are
up,
you feeling like
points
you're
up.
getting some good feedback?
Yeah.
So I have a question. The state legislature, 2 years ago, Adam, eliminated, it used to be cities could collect a home-based business fee annually. I know I was paying it, now I haven't paid it for a couple of years, it was like $40. If it was a home-based business, it, met this criteria that was this small or whatever. So, do you still have a way to have people register in the city when they start a home-based business to this day, now that there's no longer a fee tied to it?
As I recall, I think they still have to get a license, but we can't charge them.
That's what.
So I think we take this maybe an approach that it's under the umbrella of a home-based business, and you need to register just like any other home-based business, and whether there's a fee involved or not at some certain point, I mean, maybe that's an approach we could take with it.
Yeah, the fee is basically, that's just covering your processing,
Right.
Sending them a license, that's just covering your staff's time.
Two other home-based businesses right now legally. Is this outside of that,
Yes,
that legislation right now?
it is.
Again, I'll just reiterate that my biggest it's not the hosted Airbnb, I mean, the short-term rentals, but it is those ones that rent it only on the larger capacity for
And
retreats and those kinds of
We
things.
still have residents that pay the $40 home occupation license because they do have an impact, they're, I can't, but we do still have some,
So
so,
many visitors coming,
Yeah, or-
clients coming,
yeah.
whatever,
yeah, with the clients and things, yep.
right.
Okay, real quick, the other items are very simple. The owner posts it, gives them a packet saying, here's some basic
Guidelines.
guidelines.
That was one thing that one of the full-time operators on my neighborhood said she felt would be a value, is have a standard communication, clarification of this
the
is what
renters.
Lindon City expects so that you can be a good neighbor. And require that they post it for the visitors as well. So I really like this part of what you prepared, Mike.
Okay.
The one that we stayed in St. George had that. As soon as you came in, it was in a very prominent place that you could review, and we found it to be very helpful.
Okay, no commercial uses, so this takes care of the wedding event, reception, parties. This was we already had this discussion on number 8 about the transient room tax. And then 9, use of a dwelling as a short-term rental shall not change the appearance of the dwelling or property for residential purposes. So it's not making it, look like
Stay
La
here.
Quinta Inn
here.
on the side of your home, so.
Okay,
So with that, I'll
yeah, take what you've
take this
got
out,
and
bring,
take another stab at it, and then
Okay.
Would you be all right if we just send additional, not additional, but just follow-up comments and clarifications as you craft something a little more firm?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Motion to
Motion to adjourn.
do you have a second?
Wait, who has it?
I'll second it.
Well, we can go boom, boom.
I did not.
So Carolyn and Van, so
Before Van's presence, so.
all in favor?
Aye.
It's done. I will know better than to say it's gonna be a good day.
I told my wife the same thing.
I did, I said, man, I look at this.